Turned open meeting tonight, and we'll start off with our pledge.
All right. Good evening. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Damon Zemeyer. He is a current sixth grader at Sloan Creek, and he has been in Lovejoy School since third grade. His sister Hannah also attends Sloan Creek as a fifth grader. Damon enjoys and plays baseball, football, and basketball. And if you ask him what he's going to do when he grows up, he says something with sports or engineering. So very talented kid there. And one of Damon's best qualities is that he is not shy or afraid to talk to people, hence why he's doing our pledges tonight. So we are so grateful for Damon and the leadership qualities he models daily. So
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas pledge. I honor allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. All right, item 6, Mr. Parker, student recognitions.
We have one program, but we have two different groups that we're going to be recognizing tonight. Coach Tischer will be coming up here. And our wrestling program in the fall team, we defended our state championship in team wrestling. And so now we're back to back state champions in team wrestling. And then we also had got second in state UIL wrestling. Unfortunately, not first like we did the year before. But so we're obviously proud of what we've done in wrestling, and what Coach Tischer and all of these kids have done is incredible. I'll let Coach brag on these kids.
Like Coach Ross stated, we had another really good, successful year. Coach Eaton and I, we put everything we can into these boys, and they do a good job. First, we had several kids qualify for the state individual tournament. I'm gonna call them up if they would come up and get their certificate from If you don't know, this is my daughter, Emma. She's a senior this year. She was our manager for all 4 years. So I'm putting her to work one more time. First, state qualifier at 113 pounds, we had Jack Willard, who was a freshman, state district champion, regional runner-up. At 120 pounds, we have Jackson Lambert, regional runner-up, district champion, regional runner-up, and 6th place in state. At 126 pounds, we have Jaden Bennett, district champion, 3rd place in the region, state qualifier. At 144 pounds, we have Mercer Ashley. Mercer was a district champion, regional runner-up, and took 5th place in state. At 150 pounds, we have Eli Silva. Eli was a district champion, 4th place in the region, and state qualifier, and certified best dressed. At 157 pounds, we have Andrew Kotecki. Kotecki was a district champion, region champion, and 6th place in state. At 165 pounds, we had Corey Solis. Corey was a district champion, regional champion, and 6th place in state. At 190 pounds, we have Jackson Dubree. Jackson was a district champion, regional champion, and 3rd place in state. 215 pounds, I didn't see him. I don't know. Peyton Pierce? No, but Peyton was district champion, regional champion, and a state runner-up. And at 285 pounds, Samuel Reynolds. Or what I like to call big country. Samuel was a district champion, regional champion, and a state champion in the state of Texas. These are the individuals that placed at the UIL individual men's team. We do have one woman that was a state qualifier, and I'll call her up as well, and that's Julie Lafort. Julie took 3rd place in district, 6th place in the region. She was a state alternate. So what that means is Julie got the chance to be an alternate if anyone would got hurt in her weight class, and she was an alternate for that weight class to get into the state tournament. It didn't happen, but the best thing I liked is that she's already motivated for next year, working hard and working on that just like everyone else. And just like Coach Ross said, not only did we have these individuals, we had a group of boys that accomplished a feat of winning their back-to-back state dual championships in January. And some of those boys ended up coming with, and wrestling's a different sport. I mean, it's not one of those things where you can just put anyone you want in a spot. You have to make sure that those kids are on weight. For anyone that doesn't know how hard it is to get someone down to weight and then maybe not even step foot on the mat, that takes a lot of mental, fortitude to keep them going and keep them motivated to do what's best for the team. When it comes to that standpoint, it's not an I moment, it's a we moment. And a lot of these boys, they didn't step foot on the mat, but they were still part of that team effort. At 106 pounds, we have Dalton Hart. And you're gonna hear me say a weight more than once, because when you go to state dual championships, you always like to bring more than one weight, because just in case someone were to get hurt, you have a backup. If you don't have a backup, you're giving up 6 points to the other team. So at 106 pounds, we also have Grayson Stanford. At 120 pounds, Jonathan Aldape. 126 pounds, I didn't see Slade Dixon. Also at 126 pounds, Caden Stubblefield. At 132 pounds, Landon Davis. At 132 pounds, Elijah Strand. And actually, Elijah here actually qualified for the regional tournament, but unfortunately suffered a head injury going into the regional tournament that he was not able to wrestle. So we had to pull him out at the last second. It was a safety call over anything else. So, but just wanted to point that out that he did qualify for the regional tournament. We also had 138 pounds, Alex Mitchell. 138 pounds, Bennett Secor. 144, Brandon Gibson. 150 pounds, Luke Richards. 165 pounds, Braxton Abel. Now, for you that don't know, Braxton definitely gets the John Wayne Award. He actually got put in a move that cut off his air supply, and he fainted a little bit, came back through it, and then ended up beating the guy. So that's a John Wayne Award right there. 175 pounds, Kyle McClure. 175 pounds, Austin Stratmeyer. 190 pounds, Asher Wheatley. And 285 pounds, Nicholas Rowe. I know some of these boys said they couldn't be here, but I still wanted to make sure their names got said. And the most important person that kept this team together for the last 4 years, my daughter, manager, Emma Blair. So other than that, that's all I got. Thank you for everything. You boys did it, and girls did an amazing job. Look forward to seeing what you guys do in the future.
All right, item 7 tonight will be public comments. Ms. Taylor is going to read some information to you to get us started, and then we'll call up the first person.
Yes, good evening. Okay, according to our board policy and procedures, the Board of Trustees encourages public comments. All comments at the meeting, other than a regularly scheduled meeting, should be limited to an agenda items posted for the meeting. By signing up to provide public comment at a board meeting, you're acknowledging and accepting the procedures of the public comment available online on our website, lovejoyisd.net. Any individual seeking to speak during the public comment session of a regular board meeting must complete and submit the public comment card no later than 15 minutes prior to designated start time. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. No? Okay. I'll try to speak a little bit louder. I'm sorry about that. Public comment cards must be completed in their entirety with an agenda item. Failure to designate an agenda item relevant to the speaker's comments will result in the classification of the public comment as a non-agenda item comment to be heard at a later time during the meeting. Public comment cards are only applicable to the meeting in which they are completed and submitted by the established deadline. Each individual will have one opportunity per meeting to share their comments to the Board of Trustees, not multiple opportunities per individual agenda items. If a speaker is not present when his or her name is called, the speaker forfeits the opportunity to speak at that meeting. All speakers will be limited to no more than less than 1 minute per speaker in order to maintain effective meeting management. That's 3 minutes, sorry about that. The speaker is allotted for public comment. The amount of time per speaker may be reduced as determined appropriate by the Board of Trustees and President Owens. If time does not allow for you to speak at public comment, the Board of Trustees may allot additional time for public comment or defer specific agenda items to review at a subsequent meeting in an effort to allow more public comment as determined necessary by the board. Public comment card will not be maintained from one meeting to the next and is only applicable to the meeting on the date in which it's submitted. If you are a specific concern related to an employee of the district or a specific student issue, you're encouraged to utilize the district's grievance procedures provided in board policies, DGBA local, FNG local, and GF local, or applicable grievance policies. Each grievance procedure allows for an individual to redress grievances with the Board of Trustees. All relevant policies are available online at lovejoyisd.net. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated in the meeting. If after the provision of a single warning, the disruptive behavior continues, the disruptor individual may be escorted out of the meeting by district officials or law enforcement. It is a criminal offense for a person with intent to prevent or disrupt lawful meeting to substantially obstruct or interfere with the ordinary conduct of meeting by physical action or verbal utterance. The Board of Trustees appreciates your active participation in the school district. Wow. Okay, we have 20 public comments for this evening. The first one up is Alan Lafort regarding agenda item 13. And again, you have 3 minutes. When the timer is up, I'm just going to ask politely if you could please step down for the next person.
Yes, sir. My name is Alan Lafort, and I'm the father of Juliana and Alex Lafort, both who attended Lovejoy. And I'm here to advocate for the wrestling program in general, but the women's program in particular. And for me, it's quite personal. You know, wrestling has been core to the success of my daughters. It has given them resilience, focus, and dedication. In the case of Alex, she's a state placer, a two-time All-American, a national judo champion, and Olympic hopeful. In the case of Juliana, she's a two-time state qualifier. And that's been so good for them. But in the parallel, I've witnessed the decline of the wrestling program. In her second year, Alex decided to quit wrestling because they moved from the high school to Sloan Creek. And she felt having to choose between being an Olympian and a wrestling program, that was the tipping point. And all her coaches will tell you she would have been a two-time state champion. In the case of Juliana, I've witnessed it because she started having 4 practices a week when she went to state. This year, they only had 2, right? So, you know, I worry that with this last change, this reduction of the wrestling coach, it's the women who will suffer. And wrestling is unique because it gives a place to women. It doesn't matter your body size. It doesn't matter your height. It doesn't matter how you look. If you don't want to be a cheerleader, if you don't want to be a volleyball player, wrestling has a place for you. And it would be sad that Lovejoy regresses when nationally, women, it's the fastest growing sport for women. And, you know, I want to add something that I think is very relevant. We came to Lovejoy 8 years ago from California, and we were in the best school district in California called Cupertino. It's where Apple is based. But they only cared about academics. They were not balanced. They didn't have athletics. They didn't fund the arts. And so we came to Lovejoy, and we were pleasantly surprised, especially since one of our girls is on the spectrum, and we've received tremendous support. But now, sadly, 8 years later, here I am having a California conversation. That's my time. Thank you.
Valerie Turnbow regarding agenda item number 13.
Hello, my name is Val Turnbow. I'm here also to support the wrestling program and share additional reasons why you should reconsider the RIF of our assistant wrestling coach position. First, we have many students in Lovejoy who are faced daily with anxiety, insecurity, feelings of isolation, loneliness. Some are bullied, and many of our students struggle with these issues silently. Many just want a place to belong where they can be who they are without judgment. Wrestling is this type of place at Lovejoy. Over the last 14 years, I've seen the program grow from a few students to almost 100 student athletes in wrestling. We even have a youth wrestling program that is doing amazing things. We've been blessed to have Coach Eaton and Coach Tischer leading the way and for putting in countless hours, mornings before school, after school, evenings, and so many, many weekends for our students. These coaches pour positivity into our children. They provide guidance and each child is seen. They are encouraged, and the best part is they can be a lightweight or a heavyweight. They can be thin or they can be heavy, and they love and train these students where they are without judgment and always with their very best interest at heart. This is a physical sport, and often these students leave the mat tired, yet either Coach Eaton and Coach Tischer are right there to high five them as they leave the mat to support them win or lose. Wrestling allows all students the opportunity to belong in Lovejoy. I can't say that enough. We need these programs and we need these coaches. If we cut the position, we lose a key person who the students have all grown to love and to admire, a role model for our students, a confidant, an encourager, a person who has invested so much to our wrestling program. You see all these students out here. This doesn't happen generically. This happens because they have been invested in. We have seen many tenured teachers leave the district for more money or for better opportunities. And yet we have amazing teachers and coaches like Mr. Tischer who stay for the kids and who want to be here. I'm sorry, I'm so emotional about this because it's so important. Please consider what your actions will do to this program by cutting this position. And more importantly, how it will affect those students and children and those families with children who need this program so badly so they have a place to feel special here and wanted in Lovejoy. We say kids come first. Let's really mean it. Let's figure out a way so that these kids can have the opportunity and where a coach who wants to be here can stay. Thank you so much for your time. Please, please reconsider.
Audrey Bone, regarding agenda item number 13.
My name is Audrey Bone. My son is a freshman on the JV wrestling team at Lovejoy. I'm here to talk about the proposed removal of the assistant wrestling coach, Coach Tischer. My concerns are threefold. You have safety. Having only one coach on this team would drastically reduce the safety. There's 81 student athletes across 4 teams. From what I understand, that's been a year-over-year increase for these athletes. And a lot of the main reason, the driving factor of why he was hired in the first place, was to help with the safety and the coaching. Not having the additional coach affects these athletes and how far they want to go and how far they want to pursue this wrestling career, having to do with scholarships, many things. Sorry. It affects the kids, and I know that my son is the first year we've been in Lovejoy. And we came here, and again, I echo a lot of the things that these parents have already said. The school district we came from was not balanced. They were focused more on athletics than academics. This is a great school district. Coach Tischer has been more than just a coach and teacher for my son. He's had a positive impact on him as a freshman this year. He's been supportive, and you take him away, you're depriving these kids of having that cohesive team, including the coaches, and seeing what they can do, demanding the best out of them and supporting them every step of what they're doing every day. So I ask you to reconsider taking his position away. Thank you.
Joanna Solis, regarding agenda item number 13.
Good evening. My son participated in the recent wrestling state competition where he was injured in his last match. During this incident, Coach Eden immediately got to the referee's attention, attended to him, and got him medical help. He was by his side until he was clear from any serious injury and until he was released to me and my husband. This took at least 30 to 45 minutes. While all this was happening, Coach Tischer was coaching other wrestlers, Jackson, who was also competing at the same time. This is only one example as to why it's critical and necessary to have at least 2 coaches, experienced coaches in a wrestling program. If there were to only be one coach, many athletes will not have a coach on their corner. Having a coach there will ensure that they receive the much needed instruction, medical help if needed, and protection from unsafe and illegal moves that reference may not see. One coach cannot be at multiple matches at once. Tournaments require a minimum of 2 coaches, especially when varsity, junior varsity, men and women are competing at the same time. It's not uncommon to have 3 to 4 matches going at once. Not to mention that men and women tournaments can be at different locations. My son graduates this year, but I will continue to cheer and support them. I invite all of you to do the same. How many, please raise your hands, have been at a tournament? Not at a dual match, but a tournament. Some of you have, and we're so grateful for that. Thank you for the support. To those of you that haven't, I encourage you to please go and make this a priority and witness for yourself what it takes to run a successful program. We don't want Lovejoy to be on the news for athletes being injured while no coaches were there to protect them. Please help us protect these young men and women by maintaining their current coaching staff with experienced full-time coaches. Not just any coach, but full-time coaches, and make their safety their #1 priority. Thank you, coaches, for taking care of our kids. It is because of you that we celebrated their achievements tonight. Thank you.
Eric Abel, regarding agenda item number 13.
Hello, my name is Eric Abel. I'm the current Wrestling Booster Club president and father of Lovejoy Wrestler. We've been a part of this program for 6 years, and I'm speaking tonight on the reduction in force consideration affecting the high school assistant wrestling coach and the severe detriment it will have on this extremely successful program. First, a bit of history regarding this coaching position for those who were not here 4 years ago. Spring of 2019, the wrestling parents petitioned the board and were successful in requesting a full-time assistant coach for the growing high school wrestling program. A major reason for that decision was player safety. This is a team that has seen its numbers almost double from 49 2 years ago to 81 this year. Now, it's supposedly in line with Lovejoy's legacy of excellence to potentially have only 1 coach responsible for 81 athletes. That doesn't sound like a commitment to excellence to me. Whoever made this recommendation has likely never seen a wrestling practice, been to a wrestling tournament, and has no inkling of an idea of what's required of a wrestling coach. Wrestling tournaments are often held in high schools with multiple gyms so that multiple matches can concurrently occur, meaning that oftentimes more than one Lovejoy wrestler will be competing at the same time. Without a second coach, there would be wrestlers competing without a coach in their corner and possibly not even in the same gym. This means that your son or daughter may have to compete without a wrestling knowledgeable coach to give advice and strategy, to advocate on their behalf when a ref has made a questionable call, and most importantly, to keep them safe. Emphasis on wrestling knowledgeable, because prior to 2019, there were occasionally coaches that had little to no knowledge about wrestling helping this team. Do we hire assistants in football that never played football? Or baseball coaches that have never swung a bat? But that's exactly what the wrestling assistant was prior to 2019. That's not safe. It's not a commitment to excellence. Why is wrestling different? Nosebleeds are common in wrestling. Who tends to those? The coach. There are no school trainers present like in other sports. Imagine if your child's caught in a hold that made him lose consciousness and no coach was in their corner to rush to their aid. Probably rarely happens, right? Happened to my son this year. But Coach Eaton and Coach Tischer were both there as coach should be whenever a player is competing. It's absurd in any sport for a coach not to be present when a player is competing. Why is wrestling different? In my opinion, the district's asking for a lawsuit if this recommendation is passed. I can see the headline now. Affluent school district has no one on a sideline when wrestler is severely injured. But at least you will have saved tens of thousands of dollars in the budget. Cut costs in another area that doesn't jeopardize players' safety. Make the right decision to keep 2 wrestling coaches at Lovejoy High School. The success that you just honored doesn't happen with just 1 coach. Thank you for your time.
Corey Solis. Corey Solis regarding agenda item number 13.
Hello, I'm Corey Slees. I competed on varsity this year as the 165 pounder. I competed in districts, regionals, and state, placed in all of them. And I'll start off with, throughout when I first started, both coaches were there supporting me. I may have not have been the best when I started, but I for sure worked, and both Coach Tischer and Coach Eaton were always there supporting me. And it's just sad because I've looked up to them for so long. They're more than just a coach to us, this team. It's not just a team, it's a family. Wrestling at tournaments, emotions are high, as you can tell. You go through so much. You don't know what to expect at wrestling. Coaches, they make everything so much easier. Taking them away, that just makes us more prone to injury. Takes away our knowledge, our learning time of the sport, of this great sport that which has changed our lives. And if you go through with this, it's not just going to affect us, as you can tell. It's also going to affect this school greater than you think it will. That's all.
Russell Dupree. Regarding agenda item number 13.
Wrestling career may be over, but he'll be attending the team engineering program this fall. You can always see transformation. Work ethic, this transformation I very much attribute to the wrestling program. Several years ago, when the board approved the assistant wrestling position by adequate levels of this program at this time, there were a number of additional benefits that were already recognized. Two team moves, four consecutive state championship, one state place year shot. Listen to the accomplishments of this program in recent years. I can go on and on. Chief concern here. As a former collegiate wrestler, I can see the wrestling is a complicated sport for those that are unfamiliar. Very technical based moves. Pure notion that this is a contact sport. The risk of injury is great, and likely any type of competition can happen. Whether that be in practice or competition, it takes a lot of training, knowledge, and expertise to properly ask anyone in the world that knows anything about that.
Emily Ashley, regarding agenda item number 13. I think we're gonna get your mic fixed.
Hi, is it on? Okay. My name's Emily Ashley, and I'm here to talk about the assistant coach position. I have one student currently enrolled that's a junior, Mercer Ashley, and my daughter Avery Ashley graduated last year. Both of them wrestle, and I'm going to focus on some of the accomplishments of the team. Obviously, safety is important, but trying to hit on some different points, and also really just focusing on what the program brings to the kids. If my daughter were here, she would tell you that if it weren't for wrestling, she would not be in college right now. And she is wrestling in college and was able to place 5th at the national conference this year. So, and she attributes that to what she's learned here at Lovejoy Wrestling. So just kind of even beyond what the kids accomplish here, other students, my daughter, Catherine Heath, is at Baker University, Alice Vislowski is wrestling at OU. So we've got children that go on to participate in wrestling outside of Lovejoy and in college. So I was one of the parents that petitioned the board for an assistant coach several years ago. So some of my statistics are really focused on what the team was able to accomplish in the years prior to having an assistant coach and what we've done since. So in the total of 7 years prior that I had stats to an assistant coach, we had 8 state placers and 1 champion. In the 4 years that we've had an assistant coach, we've had 20 state placers and 6 champions. That's a huge improvement. I mean, that's more than 100% improvement in not even the same time period, in half the time. In the 7 years prior, we had 40 state qualifiers. In the last 4 years, we've had 39 state qualifiers. And that is a combination of our men and women's program. So I can go through some of the stats, but some more of the stats, but even from regional perspective, another good one is in the 7 years prior, 45 regional placers. In the last 4 years, we've had 44 regional placers. So, I mean, we're continuing to grow and develop, and we're able to do that because we've got multiple coaches. They can actually focus on the new athletes coming in. What do they need to know to stay safe in their training and learn skills? What do the more advanced athletes, what kind of training do they need? What tips on safety do they need to make sure that as they continue to develop, they're learning new moves, but they're doing them safely? That's not possible with one coach. You really need at least 2 people to be able to divide the group and have the continued advancement that we've had with this program. I think the rest other people have talked about, so thank you very much for your time.
Crystal Lambert. Crystal Lambert, regarding agenda item number 13.
Good evening. I had a lot of statistics down, but I think that they've pretty much covered a lot of the other parents have covered a lot of those. But one thing that was not mentioned was that the the National Wrestling Coaches Association recommends a ratio of 9-1, 9 athletes to 1 coach. If we cut down to 1 coach, we will have 81 to 1 coach. One of the things with wrestling is that we do not have athletic trainers available during their practice. So, and bloody noses are very common. And so the coaches have to attend to those. So if someone gets a bloody nose, there's 80 students without a coach if the coach is having to attend to it. In the last board meeting, the board asked the administration about what would the student impact of the reduction in force, and was told, we are not eliminating resources for students, end quote. But that is exactly what has been done. By eliminating a qualified assistant coach, you've eliminated their most important resource. And this seems to contradict board policy, board priority number 2, which is to maintain our legacy of excellence, and certainly doesn't fall within one standard. One other point is Coach Tischer also teaches health. And there's been discussion about the elimination of high school health starting next year. However, as of the last SHAC meeting held last week, there's no decision made on whether health will be eliminated or not, or be required for graduation, which would require the change in graduation requirements. And so are we eliminating the health teacher before the SHAC has made their recommendation, is my question. And I know that there are a lot of financial situations and tough decisions that are needing to be made. And I hate that any position has to be eliminated, but this is not the one. Out of all the athletic positions, why was this position chosen? And was that athletic director consulted? And this is the only position included in this reduction in force that works directly in the classroom and with students all day and every day. And I respectfully ask that the board send this back to administration to for more efficiency studies in consultation with Coach Ross and Coach Eaton. Eliminating this position would be hugely detrimental to the students and the wrestling program as a whole, and I'm not sure the program could survive. Thank you.
Jackson Lambert, regarding agenda item number 13.
My name's Jackson Lambert. I've been on Lovejoy varsity for 4 years now. And I want to start by saying that wrestling has changed my life. I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am now without the sport and without both Coach Tischer and Coach Eaton. They've taught me so much on and off the mat, and this team is like a family to me. We've all put in so much work, time, and effort, and we have yet to get the respect that we have earned. We win the state championship last year, and we lose our mats, having to roll up the mats before practice every day. We become back-to-back state dual championships this year, runner-up this year, and now we are losing one of our 2 coaches. We're not looking to be rewarded, but I don't think we're asking a lot here to not have one of the most dominant wrestling programs in the state have one of their 2 coaches get fired. Thank you.
Robin Wheatley, regarding agenda item number 13.
My name is Robin Wheatley. Thank you for your service and all that you do. I know a lot of it goes unappreciated, and you're probably not told thank you enough. I do appreciate what you do. Let me start first by saying I'm the mother of 3 boys, so I'm a boy mom. I have 2 leopards that have already graduated, and they've been very successful in college. My baby is a 190-pound freshman who does wrestling, football, and speech and debate. So I'm not coming at this from a safety perspective, which I think really, from a lawyer standpoint, should be the most paramount important thing on your mind, because what we're doing here is dangerous. And I'm not coming at this from a boy mom perspective. I'm coming from this as a parity perspective. We have 4 teams. We have girl JV, girl varsity, boy JV, boy varsity. What would happen if we told the girls basketball team, we're taking away a coach? We're taking away a coach from these boys and these girls because what we can? We have girls soccer, we have boys soccer. Do they share a coach? How does this work? This to me is crazy to be able to say we're going to have 81 athletes and we're going to give you one full-time coach. I think the story is, well, we're going to have other coaches to come and help. Who? Football? Do they know? Wrestling? What about when we overlap? We want to go to state this year. The seasons overlap. So they're going to be preparing for playoffs. They're not going to be available. They're going to be working on that. Basketball, seasons overlap. I just think this is a dangerous precedent. And I think you also need to consider a possible violation of Title IX. Excuse me. I'm getting upset because I think about this from the girls' perspective. I personally think this is a potential problem under Title IX. This is not equitably allocating athletic participation opportunities for girls and boys, specifically for our girls. So I think this is dangerous on two fronts, Title IX and liability for protection of our athletes. Thank you.
Ty Rose. Ty Rose, is that you? Regarding agenda item number 13.
Hey, can y'all hear me all right? All right. Ty Rose, my son's in 5th grade, wrestler, and so this decision is impacting his future coming up here. Simon Sinek is probably most well known for his book, Start With Why, right? What is our why? Lovejoy's why, as most school systems, is prepare young men and women, kids, boys and girls, for the future, for success, for what that looks like. So what are we doing? We're taking care of them academically, we're taking care of them socially, we're taking care of them athletically. We look at the wrestling program, compare it, right? You've talked about the fastest growing sport, women's wrestling, fastest growing sport at the high school and collegiate level across the country. We've talked about the safety aspect, the numbers 1 in 81, and I'm sure y'all have written them down. But think about this, think about the opportunities that Lovejoy is putting out there. You know, when you compare what the wrestling program over the past few years in the UIL Lone Star Cup points, right? What athletic program has contributed more towards Lovejoy in the past few years than the wrestling program has, based on the state placing and state championship points in the past few years, right? We market that. That is one of the things that we put out there that helps us gain the standing that Lovejoy has, that helps recruit people. We moved here a few years ago based on Lovejoy's standing in what Lovejoy represents, right? And that's a part of it. These kids are donating that, right? They're donating their time and energy to benefit the program with a lot more points. And look at the scale, right? Look it up and see what other programs that you have that do that same thing. And I know it's financial, right? We talk about the revenue generating sports, which most people count as football. And then we have the non-generating sports, which is everything else, okay? So if it has to be a fiscal, if it has to be a financial decision, then separate it and look at all the other. Compare the 1 and the 81, compare the Lone Star Cup, the star points, compare the safety aspect, compare the women opportunities with the men's opportunities. Wrestling is different. Wrestling is not an after-school activity. It's not a social activity. It's not something that you're going to hop off the bus and do for about 45 minutes while your parents are doing something else to get you a little bit of physical activity. Wrestling sets you up for success. It set me up for success, and it allowed me to go to one of the best institutions in the country. It set me, and it set a lot of my teammates up. And this is great what they've been able to do and they've accomplished at the state level, but it doesn't matter whether they place or whether they win the region or whether they win state or not. Stepping on the mat all 4 years sets them up with the level of courage and development, morally and mentally, to tackle the other obstacles, so they don't have to figure out whether they can or can't do something later. They just have to decide whether they want to. And that's what wrestling provides, and that's the why. So, thank you.
Shayna Eccles. Shayna Eccles. Last call for Shayna. regarding agenda item number 13.
Hi, my name is Shayna Eccles. I'm the mother of a 9th grade girl here at Lovejoy. We just switched from another district while we look for a home in your district. I'm here to advocate for the assistant wrestling coach position that the reduction in force is proposing to do away with. I fear for my daughter's safety and confidence to compete without a coach present. If Coach Eaton were forced to choose between being present at her match or perhaps another wrestler at a different gym at a tournament, because oftentimes girls can be in a completely different gym in a large school at the same time, JV and varsity, that the boys are wrestling. If you haven't attended a wrestling tournament before, you'd be surprised just how much enthusiasm and expertise a coach can inject into a match. It's unfair to our wrestlers, whether it be a girl or a boy that would be wrestling at the same time without a coach present, to expect them to do their best and represent our program to the best of their ability when their competition would have their own expert in their corner, coaching them actively during the match. Cutting our assistant coach position would have serious disadvantages to our female student athletes when, as you've heard, women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the scholastic and collegiate levels. One of the things that really drove my daughter to wrestling was to be part of something that was up and coming and big, and the grit that you get as a wrestler, it translates. I'm not sure if you know the statistics about the number of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that were wrestlers, but it's like 43%. It's mind blowing. To do anything that would jeopardize a program for both boys and girls by splitting their resources is really disappointing, and I urge you to reconsider. Thank you.
Elijah Strand, regarding agenda item number 13.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elijah Strand. I'm a junior at Lovejoy High School. I'm a proud to be varsity wrestler at Lovejoy for 3 years now. I also want to thank you tonight for recognizing us, and thank my coaches as well. I especially want to recognize Coach Tischer and Coach Eaton for the time and dedication they've devoted to our state champion team and myself. In Coach Eaton's absence, Coach Tischer has taken a big step up at a time when we truly needed it. This goes to show how important an assistant coach position is to our team. Thank you very much.
Asher Willard, regarding agenda item number 13.
Hello, I'm Asher Willard. I'm a sophomore. It's my first year in wrestling, and I've been in many other sports, and personally, it's the one I felt the most welcome and honestly just helped in and focused on. Wrestling as a sport, I feel like it is a very large community, but it's also very personal, and I feel like our coaches help with that a lot. As how do I say this? Our coaches are very personal, they're very caring, and they care a lot about what we do and how we do it. They help us fix our form, they help us past wrestling, they encourage us, they want us to be the best version of ourselves, even if it's not purely for wrestling or if it's not within wrestling. Wrestling for me, it has helped me to just get my goals more on track, and it's also shown me a sport that allows me to connect with more people while at the same time competing at a high level for something that is pretty it's a sport that is very competitive, and it's just, yeah, whenever you go in, it's 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and you don't really get a breather in between. And whenever you have that coach at the corner cheering you on, telling you what to do next, or just giving you inspiration to finish the match and telling you to get the next point and get a takedown, or just stay down, stay up, just do the best option for the current situation. They have been very helpful for me going in as my first year within the sport, and it's helped me grow a lot and just really learn a lot about this. It's helped me learn a lot about the sport and gain the motivation to keep going at it. And along with that, Coach Tischer has been very helpful, and he's been a very inspirational, kind, and just helpful person. He's very informative with what we need to do, how we need to do it, and he's given personal examples. And it's just, the wrestling team we have is largely connected, as others said, as a family, and that's simple what it is. We're connected to each other at a personal level, and taking one away would just be horrible.
This is not agenda item number 13. Matthew Perrin, regarding agenda item number 19, Legislative Subcommittee.
It's gonna be a challenge. I'm gonna come down here. I won't ruin it for everybody else, and sorry to be in the middle of all the wrestlers. I'm gonna go off topic for them at least a little bit, but Matt Vanderpern, 5144 Pondcrest Trail, Fairview. I want to talk briefly about Senate Bill 418 at this point. Obviously personal stake in that one. I think my family and many others had joined the scholar program here 2 years ago when similar legislation was filed to eliminate tuition. That's why a lot of us are here. Obviously talked to you guys extensively about, the topic, of course. So I think really looking at 3 asks at this point. We'd love for you to eliminate tuition. I think even if Senate Bill 418 doesn't pass, you have to recognize we're likely to revisit the tuition topic at public schools year to year. And, LJ will be under a microscope as one of the few districts in Texas that charges tuition. So, really appreciate avoiding that, I guess. And, I don't expect you to eliminate tuition without legislation. So I think my second ask is for you to delay tuition payment until after the legislative session wraps. That's fair. I'll tell you a couple reasons why. If the bill does pass, we're adding a whole lot of admin to exchange a bunch of money. If it doesn't pass, tuition is delayed by a month and it's business as usual. And next, I think we haven't seen the impacts yet of the programs and offerings that could be eliminated. I think CM Barrett's email that, and I quote, "Our next discussions and considerations as a result of, the VATRA vote will possibly be a substantial departure from our historical experiences here in Lovejoy." There's a lot of committees I've tried to join, but, very little detail to date, stuff's trickling out. My kids aren't wrestlers right now, but I don't know what that program is that may be on the chopping block that means that much to me, and to the wrestlers and everybody else, of course. Lastly, we already paid a full year of tuition this year, and now you're asking to pay next year in advance. Just lastly then, I'd just like to say, I think you should truly grandfather your scholar families, eliminate the reapplication process. Because remember, I guess the way I see Senate Bill 418, I've seen it, mentioned a lot of different ways. It all starts with availability in your seats, right? If you grandfather scholars in, there's much less availability in kind of the order of admissions that I think a lot of people are concerned with. Really just all starts with availability. Grandfathering seems like a simple pen stroke to me, of course, maybe not that easy, but it takes away your availability. So that's about all I have on the topic. Thanks for hearing me.
And our last comment for the evening is Kelly Daniels, regarding agenda item number 16.
I am also going to go off topic a little bit from the night. I'm Kelly Daniels. I am speaking tonight to voice my support for the calendar revision for next year to include the extended planning days for our teachers. We've been in the district for 8 years. I have 2 at Willow, 1 at Pester, and we'll have an upcoming kindergartner next year. My kids have had some of the most amazing teachers these past 8 years. Teachers who have loved them, taught them, and have always had their best interest at heart. Teachers who have helped my struggling reader and walked alongside us as we navigated a dyslexia diagnosis. Teachers who were a familiar face last year when we moved to Pester. Teachers who know my children and know my family. My 4th grader had the privilege of having 2 of his older brother's former teachers these past couple of years, and I want the same for my upcoming kindergartner. I want our teachers to stay because we truly have the best, and I want them to feel supported by this community. I trust that our teachers always have the best interest of our students in mind, and that these additional planning days will help give them the time they need to give our kids the best education. We have the opportunity right now to listen to what our teachers need and what they believe will benefit our children the most. So tonight, I ask that you please consider voting in favor of extending the planning days for next year. Thank you.
President Owens, that's all the public comments we have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for all the comments tonight. If you would, please bow your head with me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to be here to serve, Lord, our children, our educators, our families, and the community. We're thankful for keeping us safe, getting us here safely, and we pray for wisdom and guidance tonight as we discern through things. We pray for this community and our students. We give thanks for the honors that we get to bestow to the kids, and we give thanks for all those serving them. And we just ask for your forgiveness and your blessings on each of us in Christ's name. Amen. All right. The next item, item 9, is a notification item of resignations. You have the list in your package. Item 10 is the consent agenda tonight. If there's anything you'd like pulled for discussion in the consent agenda, we can do that. If not, we'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve this consent agenda.
So moved, Ann Smith.
Second.
Second, Amy Smith. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 11 is our celebration of learning. Dr. Tinsley.
Yes, thank you. We have the honor tonight of hearing from our Willow Springs Middle School Social Studies team, and I'm going to ask the principal, Caitlin Eldridge, to come up and introduce her team. And this is an important piece because, as you recall, this was an area of student performance that we've been really trying to hone in on to make some gains. And the work that this team is doing, we believe, is going to make significant impact on our student achievement results this year. So I'm going to let Caitlin get us started.
Dr. Cordell, members of the board, I'm Caitlin Eldridge, interim principal of Willow Springs. It's my honor to present 3 of my amazing staff members who are here tonight to present our celebration of learning in our social studies department.
Hi, I'm Heidi Gambrell. I'm with the 8th grade team.
Paul Zupardo, I am 7th grade social studies.
I'm Elena Wittes. I'm the specially designed instructional coach.
Get into it. All right, so challenges for 8th grade. We are US history, if you don't know, but we only cover like year 1400 to 1877. So very exciting for 13 and 14-year-olds. So conceptualization is the hardest part of 8th grade social studies. I like to remind my students we're their last stop for an AP class. So putting history in context for them, making it relevant, is the challenge that we face. This is not just memorizing names and dates. It's taking those names and dates and applying it to inference skills, sequencing, the whys, the motivations behind it. It's very intertwined with a lot of the things. If you look at our process standards with reading, they're just completely intertwined with one another. So getting those middle school kids to buy into anything, let alone why understanding exploration and colonization is important to their current day lives, can be a challenge. So we have to model for our kids how to put that into context. So on the next slide, I've got some examples of the amazing things we've been doing. So one way that we handle this is we really focus on era projects this year. We've made a shift towards either before or after a test, having them make connections with the entire unit of study in a way that makes sense for them. So we've done things from creating series of Netflix limited docu-series where they took an era of colonization and they had to create episodes with summaries so that they could show their understanding of the entire unit. We've done Twitter pages where if our founding fathers could tweet during the American Revolution, what would be happening? So not only did they have to tweet, they had to like respond back in a relevant way. So some of the hashtags were really, really funny. We did have to remind them to keep them school appropriate. But it was, they really bought into it. Instagram influencer we just did with Western expansion. So what if you were on the Oregon Trail? How would you be influencing your followers? Get ready with me while you're loading the wagon is very, very different than some of the followers or some of the creators that they follow. And we just finished a Wikipedia page because, you know, our kids love to go to those sources instead of the required reading that we went. So we're like, you are going to be the ones that are creating these informational pages. So that really helped them buy in. And then the focus on AP writing because we don't want to lose the rigor. And so we are doing a lot of constructed response, a lot of DBQs, and that source analysis and using the HIP analysis, which is what they use in the AP classes, for them to really deep dive into what we call archaic sources, because they're looking at things like the Magna Carta, the Mayflower Compact, George Washington's farewell address, which shows up on almost every single College Board test. And asking them to access that type of vocabulary is very, very difficult. So we really rely on the younger grades to support us with those process standards of analyzing text, whether they're familiar with it or not. But I did have two of my students. They provided videos for me to kind of, I think hearing from the kids is always best. So as we saw tonight with some of our public comments, I just think hearing it from them is great. Did not get downloaded first.
So the most challenging part of US history is actually understanding the material. We're at like a grade level now where you can't just memorize to like actually succeed. You have to like actually learn what you're doing. And the way that teachers have helped us with this is by assigning us these special projects that come like after the test or right before it that kind of summarize the unit. And they're really good because they force students who maybe weren't interested in what we were learning, because a lot of times like they struggle to connect with what we're learning, so they force them to really delve deep into the materials and like make connections, draw conclusions, and all that sort of thing that really helps them like actually learn.
And I promise I did not pay her to say any of those things. That was all from Amina. There is another one too. Okay, I was gonna say if it's not down. The student that you just heard from, she is in Miss Novicki's class, because obviously we're a team. I'm not doing this independently. She's a GT student.
Okay, so what do you think the hardest part of 8th grade social studies is?
Probably finding the dates in large texts and memorizing them, especially in tests.
All right, so what do you think we are successful with when it comes to helping you guys navigate all that and figure it out and make it make sense for you?
When you give us the political cartoons and find the dates in them, and it helps me visualize them during tests and on finals and stuff.
How have you felt about the projects?
Oh, those have helped me. Like the test we just took, those have helped me so much. Like I could visualize what I did on the test, so it helped me figure out the answer from what the questions were asking.
So the projects like the Reformer movement and
Yes,
Wikipedia, okay.
yes.
Does it make it feel more real to you when you have to do something creative with the stuff we've been working on?
Yes, definitely, especially when we get to draw pictures and stuff. And the Wikipedia project, that was a big one too.
All right, perfect, thank you.
And I'll let Paul talk about how seventh is supporting.
All right, so seventh grade social studies is Texas history, and the big challenge for us really is preparation. We need to prepare them for the extra rigor, the extra work that they are going to have to do in eighth grade. It does not get easier after seventh grade, obviously. They need to be introduced to things such as analyzing the sources. They need to learn the difference between primary and secondary sources. They need to know what they're going to then do with that historical evidence once they know where to find it. Another thing that is a challenge for us is getting the students to recognize the different types of perspectives that they're going to encounter when they're studying this material. Not everything that they come across is going to be from a viewpoint that they are familiar with in the modern world. So they need to recognize, okay, these are some of the different perspectives that people at this time that we're studying may have had. On the next slide, I have some examples of some of the work that we've done. Again, the first thing here, there are a variety of different sources that they are going to encounter in seventh grade. They'll be looking at maps. They will be looking at charts. They will be studying photos. They will be reading text. All of the different types of historical sources that they could possibly encounter, they will be studying these. And they will be turning this into, like as they work on various projects, once they have studied these items, they can then create timelines. They can then take the information from those timelines and put them in order in books. We actually had a project called 10 Years a Nation recently where they kind of chronicle in a children's storybook the history of the Republic of Texas based on a timeline that they had created previously. And some of these projects that we got were just absolutely outstanding. Also, when it comes to some of the material that they will be studying in eighth grade, we also are going to prepare them for some of the things later on, such as towards the end of eighth grade when they study the Civil War, because if I'm not mistaken, that's about where eighth grade social studies ends. We need to introduce concepts to them such as right before we cover Reconstruction, we talk about, or right before we cover the Civil War, we talk about sectional differences within the country and some of the lead up to the Civil War, so that in eighth grade, when they encounter these things, they're somewhat familiar with it. And again, on the next slide here, I have a couple of other examples of projects where students really have brought some of these things that they have studied to life. I've had students that have, back when, towards the beginning of the year when we studied Spanish missions in Texas history, I had students that created models out of clay and brought those in because we had a project where they were supposed to create some kind of a representation of a mission. How they accomplished that was completely their call. I also had students that created a mission in Minecraft. I thought it was a really creative way to accomplish that. And again, I'm just very proud of the work that our students produce.
Hi, I'm Elena, and I'm the Specially Designed Instructional Coach. I have the wonderful opportunity to work with teams at Willow. They're all amazing teachers, and the Social Studies Department does a wonderful job at differentiating instruction, and we talk about finding strategies to help students with IEPs, not just those kinds of students, those types of learners, but all learners. We look at how we can tailor lessons to meet those specific needs, and we talk about different ways to reach those needs, guided instruction, collaboration, and just ensuring that those students that need that extra little support have that assistance. And that's what I do. And that's what I'm here for. Thank you. I want to thank my staff members for being here tonight. You are greatly appreciated. On our team, we have a wide range of backgrounds, abilities, and years in the field. He may not be happy with me for sharing this, but I'm extremely proud of Mr. Zapardo. When I first met him and watched him teach, I did not know he was a first-year teacher, new to Lovejoy, new to the field completely. And the way that our team has embraced him and partnered with him as we tackle these challenges together has been amazing. So thank y'all all. Thank you, Ms. Gambrell, for partnering with the teachers in your department. Thank you, Ms. Wittes, for being here for our team, helping us align and reach all of our learners. And also for you for entering the field, for being brave, Mr. Zapardo. We're so happy to have you in Lovejoy.
All right, item 12, Ms. Koenig, consider an act on employment agreements and Chapter 21 contract recommendations.
Yes, President Owens, I am asking you to approve, and we'll recommend that you approve the employment agreements and Chapter 21 employee contracts for the employees that I have put a list in your folder. Tomorrow we will, once they're approved, we will put those in the board book for everyone else. I do want to make a comment. Our LRAs, our letters of reasonable assurance, are not listed because they do not have to be board approved, but those are a lot, mainly for auxiliary personnel. Okay.
Any questions for Ms. Koenig?
Any questions? Okay. Administration recommends approval of the employee agreements and Chapter 21 employee contracts for the listed employees.
So moved. Julie McLaughlin. Second. Second, Jason James. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I also want to note that there will be a second round of contracts at the end of April. We still have some teachers in completing their work and testing and all those types of things. Okay.
All right, item 13, consider and take possible action to adopt the recommendation of the superintendent regarding the employment areas affected by reduction in force due to program changes. Ms. Koenig.
Yes, I'm here to give you just a little bit of update on the reduction in force, our program change here. We all know what our current challenges is. I think we've all seen this slide many times. We do want to retain our Lovejoy ISD's legacy of excellence. We do want to retain the very best teachers, recruit the very best, and we have many of them here tonight and want to thank them for being here, and of course respond to our funding challenges. That's what we're facing. Also wanted to review our strategic plan that our committee worked on last year, and some of those key indicators that we have been using to identify staffing efficiencies, things that we think that we can make better use of staff, developing the guidelines, we're looking at those master schedules, implementing a standard position review process. We're doing those things. Reviewing staff and compensation against comparison districts, what other districts are doing, and then of course analyzing the master schedules to implement staffing guidelines versus kind of what actual results are. So we are definitely doing some of those types of things. As we've developed the budget this past year, I do feel that we looked at our current state. We did capacity assessment last year. We looked at our demographic study. We've re-engaged with our demographer to determine what our enrollment numbers are looking at, what our enrollment numbers for the next several years look at. We've also done zero-based budgeting again, and basically we're doing everything we can to be financially responsible here in Lovejoy. Some things that happened last year is we had, many of you know that we started out about 600 employees last year, and we actually dropped down to around 530, and that was achieved through attrition last year. So we got closer down to about 510 back in December. However, we've been fortunate. We've been able to add some custodian positions, aides, so we are fulfilling some of those that needed to be fulfilled. We went out for a VATRE that did not pass. Other districts that I know that we're hearing a lot about that have higher salaries, their VATRE did pass. Mesquite's passed. Their starting salary $61,000. Also looking at, as I said, zero-based budgeting, master scheduling committee, anything and everything we can do there. And also looking at department responsibilities. This is not, the final list. There's many things that we're still working on as we finish the year. Here are just some numbers from 2018 to 2019, 2018 to 2023, kind of where we are now there. And as I said, the numbers do fluctuate depending on the time when you look at, the date and time of how many staff members we have employed. We talked about a reduction in force due to a program change. A program change may be due to a redirection of resources, efforts to improve efficiency, a change in enrollment, any of these types of things there. We also talk about the criteria that we used in the order of importance when we looked at program change and the position itself. We're not looking at the people, we're looking at the positions. And are there positions that we can have more efficiency with, where we feel like we're somewhat overstaffed there? So this is the process that we went through. I also want to point out that anyone, and I talked to many of these individuals this past Friday to let them know the positions that we were recommending. This isn't easy. I don't want to be up here doing this. You do not want to be up here doing this. I'm in human resources and I support people. And that's why I chose the profession that I did and the job that I did. So it's difficult. And I realize that, and I hate it for everyone here. It's not something that I want to do. I've been an educator for 32 years. I was, a teacher, a principal, all the types of, those positions, and it's just not easy. So when we look at our programs impacted, the ones that we are asking for you to look at, we are looking at specific programmatic changes. One of those is special education, eliminating the executive director position there. We're looking at fine arts, the district fine arts director position. Also looking at the Willow Springs Middle School choir teacher. In athletics, one full-time wrestling coach teacher, the FTE teacher. Counseling, one counselor at Sloan Creek Intermediate School. Curriculum instruction, an instructional coach, a physical therapist, the part-time position, moving it into a full-time position. The dyslexia therapist, moving it also to a full-time position. Let me say, and I have told every one of these individuals here, you will be given priority hiring if you're qualified for the position and if you apply for a position. We want you to stay, and we hope that you will, and that you will apply for these other positions. As far as when we look at the restructure of those, some of the things that we are looking at is we are looking at positions that, for example, the director of special education. So we're changing that from an executive director to a director. We feel if there's a need here, we need someone that is more on campuses, that can provide direct support, that would impact students, that would help administrators, that wouldn't spend as much time, in meetings and planning and those types of things, but actually be a boots on the ground person. We think that's important in special education, and I know some of our parents have expressed concerns there, and we're addressing that. As far as the director of fine arts position, we're changing that to a coordinator to provide more guidance and coordination between fine arts. We think that that would be an efficiency there, that they would be placed at the high school. They would work with every campus that be placed at the high school, where many of our fine arts programs are at. We have several employees that are also coordinators that coordinate at the high school that we do, they get a stipend for, and they also have extra planning time and those types of things there. So we're asking for that. We put on there one choir teacher that will serve both Sloan Creek and Willow Springs. We're not eliminating the program at all. We're not eliminating really anything that would directly impact kiddos. We are asking that there would be one that would serve Willow Springs and Sloan Creek. Currently, we with our schedule, we can make that happen. We looked at course requests. We know how many kids are requesting choir, and we can make that happen and eliminate an FTE there during this restructure. We're also looking at a part-time assisting wrestling coach. We are not eliminating a coach. We will have 2 coaches, okay, that will coach wrestling. We also have 2 coaches at the middle school that coach wrestling. So we are still saying that we want 2 wrestling coaches and that we will have 2 at secondary and 2 at Willow Springs, and we'll continue that there. Also, we will go down to 1 counselor at Sloan Creek Immediate School. We have about 660 kids there, which when we look at ratios and those types of things, our job description for counselor has actually changed over the several years, where they're not testing, they're not doing administrative duties, they're actually working with kids. I know when there were, when 2 counselors first, from the numbers that I've found, I think Sloan Creek was about 750 when they started or had the 2 counselor programs, and that job description has definitely changed. That's when they were doing a lot of the testing and more of those more administrative duties there. We're also asking for a full-time physical therapist. And one reason we're doing that is because we want to add some responsibilities. We have a part-time, but we also have some positions that are contracted out, where we think that we can bring all of that in-house. We can make those people part of our team, which would be very, is very valuable to be part of Lovejoy. It also will help us scheduling ARDs. When you have someone here that's just a couple of days a week, it's hard for them to get invested with kids. But also when you're trying to schedule, or you need to do an emergency ARD or an emergency placement or those types of things, and we don't have everyone around the table. So we're asking for a full-time physical therapist. We need a delegate for Special Olympics. Our Special Olympics program is huge here. We need some specialized services and support in our special education department that this person would also support. So we're working on a comprehensive job description there. And also, we went from a half-time dyslexia teacher to a full-time dyslexia teacher we're asking for, because the need is there. We have more kids qualifying, and we have a need there. So that is what I am asking for the board to recommend. As I said, no one wants to do this. I surely don't want to stand up here and do this, but I do feel like it's what's best for Lovejoy and for our students. So, questions for me?
Can you expand on the contracting of the physical therapy and dyslexia?
Dyslexia, we have a part-time person here. We've had someone here for the past several years. So for dyslexia, they have been split between 2 elementary campuses, Hester and Hart. And so we would have a full-time dyslexia person. What we're hoping to do is get more campus-based, where we don't have people splitting and traveling, because we lose time, with kids. Like even the part-time person was working at Hart and Hester, well, you're going to lose at least 30 minutes, getting in, getting your settled, those types of things. With the physical therapist position, very similar. We have someone that works 2 days a week, and it's just limiting us. It also will help financially. It is a program change, but we have other things that need to be taken care of. For example, that person, we contract out for adaptive PE, and for some of those types of that those people have responsibilities that we can actually put in to a physical therapist job description, and they can do those same duties working with their kids and there. So in the long run, it's going to be a program change, but we're hoping that it's going to be more investment here in Lovejoy.
Yeah, when you say program change, can you expand a little bit more on how going from a part-time position will save money over the long run?
Well,
to go into a full-time position?
Because we have kind of piecemealed out, like we have piecemealed adaptive PE, we have part-time diags, we have part-time. So basically, if we can if we're going to put together a job description where we have one person doing that. So usually with contracted services, they're a little bit more expensive than what we would have here for our employees. So we're paying a premium pretty much for all of these contracted services, when we could bring them in-house and have one person take on those responsibilities, honestly.
So it's a money saver then?
It is, and somewhat, but also,
More than that.
More than that, it is, yes, it is. But it is, but, I think our teachers will agree that it's nice to have someone to walk down the hall and have a conversation. on a Friday when that person's only here Monday and Tuesday, you know, and I think that's something that's challenging. And scheduling, even scheduling kids and programs, because our kids have to get those services, and the services, you know, I mean, they may receive 15 minutes a day, but then we make it 45 minutes a day because that person's only here 2 days a week. Those types of things are impacting, you know, students' IEPs somewhat.
Can you speak, or maybe this is for Kevin or Coach Ross, I'm
Okay.
not sure. So there were 15 wrestling comments. Thank you for your comments. Exactly what this will look like to the kids and the families as far as this part-time assistant wrestling coach. So how will they feel with it being called this versus the way it's structured now? Does that make sense?
Kevin, do you want to talk about that?
Because I'm sure y'all want to know, so I'll ask it.
Yeah, just like Anna said, we're going to continue to have a qualified, experienced wrestling coach. There may be part-time, like she said, if Coach Tischer is interested in the position, he can still apply for it. So we don't want to go, there's no denying the success of the wrestling program. And there's no denying the commitment of our two coaches. And like Anna has said, there's no way around it as far as it's not easy for anybody. We want to continue the excellence that this program has had. We feel like that we can do that with this move. But again, we never want to go through this process. It's just one that we're unfortunately having to go through right now, but we still feel like that we can serve the wrestling community, the wrestling students, and the wrestling program with this move.
Kevin, can you speak specifically to the safety concerns and coverage at meets and things of that with this change?
Yeah, we're still going to have, like I said, we would never put one coach at a wrestling tournament, in wrestling practices. For that matter, we have a couple of experienced junior high coaches in there as well that have traveled. When I went to the regional meet, there were 4 coaches there with our team. And so we have, again, not just a warm body, but people who are experienced in the wrestling program and in the wrestling sport with our students and with our athletes.
So essentially, nothing will change with the way the kids are because they'll be at the practices, the meets, all wrestling activities. They're just not a full-time employee that's teaching and coaching wrestling. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
So this position will do something else, like teach, like most of our other coaches do, and then they'll do wrestling as well. Is that what we're looking for?
That's correct. So we do want a teacher who has a wrestling background, but also or a coach who has a wrestling background and can coach another sport as well.
How many periods a day is wrestling working out?
Right now, there's 2. There's one in the morning, and one in the first period, and 1/8 period.
And as far as assistant coaches go, do we have any other full-time assistant coaches for sports?
That may be a Coach Ross question. We don't have any other sports that are just, I mean, other than we have a couple, I don't know, Coach Ross, I don't think we have any other sports that are just full-time assistants for that sport. Is that correct? Right. But do we have any sports that have a full-time coach that doesn't coach anything else? They all have 2 assignments, he says.
They all have to, but this.
They all have a primary sport and a secondary sport.
So by making this a part-time position, having a qualified individual, we won't be giving up coverage of 2 coaches to coach these kids and keep them safe and handle them at meets and all those things, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I have one more question. I don't know if it's even related to this, but I was hearing a lot that there is not a trainer at these. Why is that? Can we send a trainer to help with bloody noses and stuff?
I don't know much about bloody noses myself, but Coach Ross or an athletic trainer at the meets.
Yeah, like student trainers at the meet for coverage. I heard a lot of that. Like the coach needs to be there for safety and injuries.
Here, come on up, Coach Ross. Or right there even.
So
So as far as having a trainer at a meet as like the tournament or a meet, there should be a trainer at a meet. Like that's the facility. Whoever's setting up the meet, if they're setting it up and not having a trainer, that's crazy.
Who would that?
So like whoever's setting it up, whatever group is sponsoring or holding the meet.
So that would cover the coach's need to be the trainer, or is the coach still needing to be the trainer too?
As coaches, we're always responsible for the safety of our athletes. And we should be able to monitor and assess. We have trainers that are on call. Like we have three. We have one at the middle school, two at the high school. But then we have 18 teams spread out all over our multiple campuses. So they're at rotating through different practices, but then they're always on call.
Not to belabor this, do we have student trainers for wrestling that could help with bloody noses?
Yes. And like, so if a coach wants, sure, if a coach wants a student trainer, it's like they assign them and they have them in different places.
Maybe the parents, if you don't have one, ask for that.
Could you go into a little more detail about what the MTSS position is for the heart and Buster? I'm not sure I heard.
Yes. Okay. So the MTSS position is going to be, we are changing the instructional coach, and we're going to have 2 MTSS positions. And what they will do will support probably tier 3 students that need more help in subject matter. They will also work with teachers, but they'll be directly working with students that, either have learning loss or need more supports, those types of things. So basically, we're moving away from one position and adding 2 others, one at each elementary school.
Other questions?
Maybe one additional question, maybe also to Coach Ross, is that we definitely want to recognize the wrestling program, their success, and the dedication of these coaches. And although we would certainly always like to have more resources, do we feel like this particular plan will support the program on a go-forward basis in a healthy way?
Yes. Here's the deal about wrestling and all of our athletes. As the athletic director, I don't want to lose any coach, but also I have to have a perspective that's a little bit larger than just our athletic arenas. So as we're looking through this and at a global level, like I understand the RIF. These are amazing people that have added value, and Coach Tischer, along with the other 7. We all recognize that, but it's not necessarily about a person. It's about positions, and I'm hopeful, as the athletic director, that they get to reapply and this all works out. But looking at it, yes.
Other questions? If not, I entertain a motion.
I just want to make another comment. I don't think any of us want to be here to do this, but I believe our community has demanded that we look for efficiency. And I believe that this is one of the ways that we'll need to do that.
I feel like the administration's really looked hard to find ways to not impact kids in the classroom and their other activities. And I feel like some of these positions, even at the administrative level, pushing people more into the campuses and into the classrooms is what we need to be focused on. So, thank you.
I'll make the motion to take action on the recommendation for the reduction in force and program changes.
So moved, Dan Smith.
Second.
Second, Jason James. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, item 14, consider an act on the use of bond funds and capital needs. Deborah Cabrera.
Good evening, President Owen, board members, and Superintendent Cordell. You know, we've had several meetings where we've discussed how we have spent our $5 million 2001 series bonds to date and what we might do potentially with some of the uncommitted funds. So to review this item and ask for your official approval to proceed on our capital needs, I'm just going to present a slide to recap the spending that we're asking to commit this evening, about $2.77 million. Instructional materials, we have a line item for not to exceed $450,000. And in a minute, Dr. Tinsley will go over that item, and the technology infrastructure and equipment item we're requesting not to exceed $1.5 million, because those two items alone make up just under $2 million of that $2.77 million request. We're also looking at a potential new ERP system for finance, payroll, and HR, and definitely to proceed with a power school upgrade. Those two items not to exceed $308,000. Cafeteria tables at Sloan Creek not to exceed $80,000. Football helmets over several years because of the lifespan not to exceed $125,000. Custodial equipment not to exceed $220,000. Maintenance equipment, which is lawnmowers, not to exceed $40,000. And of course, we've already committed to the formal needs assessment and hired the PBK architects for $47,000, and that can come out of bond funds. So again, this action this evening would commit the remaining $2.77 million of the $5 million. We'll also still have a $9.5 million bond sale sometime in the future after the conclusion of the formal needs assessment. Dr. Tinsley?
Just want to recap on the technology side of it, of what we are asking for. The enhancements with the audiovisual enhancements, we're asking for approximately $500,000 on that. And some of that breakdown does go, it's some of our common areas, such as our auditorium, our cafeterias, student devices, where we would have devices fully equipped for our students at our all the way up from kindergarten through 12th grade. Our staff devices, I'll go into a little bit more detail there about what the numbers we're looking at with that, and then just the infrastructure refresh that includes our security servers and our access points. So when we talk about staff devices, we've identified that we have about 412 staff members that would require a laptop based on their executive feedback and their function of their job. So we do believe that this would be a recruitment strategy as well too, to create some efficiencies for our teachers. So the plan is to purchase 450 laptops so that we will have some available through repair and replacement needs over the next 4 years. And then that just gives you the specifications of what we're looking at. And then for our students, we're looking at purchasing 850 devices over a period of 2 years. And the device specifications, we're looking at Chromebooks, and that would begin from grades 5 and up, and then repurposing some devices that we currently have, moving them down to the elementary schools. Instructional materials, just to recap on this, we identified a little over $432,000 of some needs when we look at our teachers needing some primary resources. We had some areas that we did not have that available for our teachers. Again, that when I talked about teacher retention and recruitment, this was one of the top 5 areas that teachers need high quality instructional materials for our students. So language arts, we're looking at around $18,000. That's to cover some of our needs on our phonics programming with K2, and then English 4, that is a course that does not currently have a primary resource. We'd be purchasing for that. And that purchase would be over a 3-year period. K-5 math, we have a need, and we're going to be adopting a new primary resource that right now is free from the state, but this is a resource that our teachers have currently been using for identifying It's an assessment tool and also provides interventions for our students. So it was something the state was providing free of charge. Now they're charging for it, but we really do not want to take that away from teachers. A need for K-12 science equipment, some CTE courses, an assessment resource that is a significant part of this request, but it's to create some efficiencies and close some gaps that we have as far as progress monitoring of student needs. Advanced placement courses, elective courses, and then I mentioned about the resource manager, which is an inventory system that we plan to use for our instructional resources and our technology devices.
Any questions?
Would you remind me what the term on this, if this amount of money, what the payback term is? How many years?
How many years to pay it back? It was 5 years. But we have actually already paid the majority of it back because this was from 2021. So we've been paying on it, just haven't spent it yet.
And there's a portion, is there any obligation to the M&O fund that will hit because we spent these INS dollars? So like the instructional materials resource system has an ongoing fee, is that correct? And you mentioned that comes from M&O on a go-forward basis?
Yes, it would, but there's also some state funding that's earmarked directly for instructional materials. And so this is during the legislative session, is projected that that will go back to the original funding that it was 2 years prior. And we have worked through that so that we can support this over time.
Mm-hmm. Last comment is just, it seems like we are really cleaning house and really trying to get a bunch of things in order of maybe purchases that probably could have been made in the past to make sure that we have, I particularly like the instructional materials to make sure that the teachers have what they need for their classrooms.
I'm happy to address that. What we have found as we have been doing an assessment of current state in multiple areas is there was not a strong cycle of renewal and replacement at strategic years. And so what has happened is we have numerous resources, whether it be technology, whether it be instructional resources that are either out of date, at end of life. And so we've conducted some of these needs assessment, identified those areas, and then we're also strategically putting plans in place for the life cycle of those resources in all areas. This work you will see continue also as part of that capital planning assessment.
So if you don't have any other questions, the administration recommends that you approve the use of the bond funds for these listed capital needs.
Questions? Further? If not, I entertain a motion.
I move that we use these capital funds as listed.
So moved, Marvin. Second, Ann. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, item 15 is the presentation for master scheduling study recommendations.
Thank you. I've been coming to you for the past several meetings to give you updates on the work of our staff stakeholder master scheduling committee. And just to always want to start with our why. Why we were charged to look at this is to respond to some of our challenges with funding, with teacher staff retention, recruitment, and support, and maintaining that legacy of excellence here in Lovejoy. So we did look at 5 different models: the 7-period day, 8-period day, block schedule, 4-day student instructional week, and then additional staff planning days. And the study included opportunities for input and review beyond the staff stakeholder master scheduling committee, understanding that the committee took all of this into consideration. We offered some staff information meetings. We've conducted some parent information meetings. We met the last couple of weeks with the Financial Sustainability Committee and Lovejoy 2030 Strategic Planning Committee. As I mentioned, updates have been provided at the board workshop and regular meetings. We released an FAQ March 3rd in Connect with Katie and had that accessible to staff and to parents. 2 surveys were conducted. Information has been shared over several weeks in Connect with Katie. And then we've also made ourselves accessible for staff and parent phone calls, emails, and offered some meetings as well too. We also have shared 2 different PTO meetings, the updates as we've been moving along. So the question on the challenge of retaining the legacy of excellence for LISD students, we strongly believe that what's going to make the greatest impact is the classroom teacher who is in that classroom. And that's what some of the studies were strongly linked to, that when you look at the 5 different models, many times you may find pros and cons, but some of those studies may more than likely did not correlate the effectiveness and measure the effectiveness of the classroom teacher to go with that. When we look at how to respond to revenue challenges, 3 of the 5 models did not indicate substantial savings for the district. The 8-period day, the 4-day student instructional week, and the additional staff planning days. One of the models, the block schedule, would incur significant costs to the district, and then one of the models would most likely decrease costs for the district. So with considering if we could, because 8-period day did not incur or savings, we are recommending that the 8-period day be that we maintain, unless we had to look for additional savings. It would be, we would make the recommendation for 7-period day, but we strongly feel that the 8-period day would help us sustain that legacy of excellence here in Lovejoy. And that would apply to Willow Springs and to the high school. So how do we retain staff teacher retention? We looked at these 5 areas here: our organizational culture, where teachers feel valued and supported in the environment that they work in; investing in teachers through training, professional development; looking at overall compensation supports with somewhat competitive salaries, healthcare insurance, and then monetary incentives for some of those hard to fill positions. As we were just talking about, ensuring that our staff have high quality instructional materials that they can access, and then looking at teacher time for planning and preparation. So that's where the master schedule falls in. And I'm going to let Anna speak to you about some recent information that she is engaged in regarding teacher recruitment and retention.
Yes, this is what we are. This is what we're competing with. So I just this past week, as we were out recruiting, I have been at OSU and OU, and we've been doing job fairs. So I just wanted to kind of see what the pulse is. And I was actually on my way up to Sherman over weekend before last, and I noticed that they were advertising a car wash manager, and the car wash manager at Buc-ee's gets $125,000 a year. Now, teachers, don't get ideas. I see some jaw dropping there. So please stay. But just, we're competing with that. We're competing with, in and out, for auxiliary personnel. They're paying $17 and we're asking for a minimum of $15 an hour. Also, my friend over in Mesquite, their VATRE did pass. And, what their starting salary is, they were able to raise to $61,000, and they're doing a 6% minimum raise and some of those types of things. So I just want you to be aware that, what we are competing with. I know Anna also, they've raised their salary and are promoting the 4-day week. McKinney has 51 teaching positions open at those schools that were listed. So I just wanted you to be aware of kind of what we're trying to do to help our teachers and support them there. Once again, what we're recommending is 3% salary increase for all staff, minimum hourly rate to $15. As I said before, we have 35 individuals making below 15, and those start at $10.79, I believe. Provide additional district benefit contribution of $50 for insurance, so that we would contribute. And then, of course, once again, we looked at supplemental benefits to get the most value for our money for our teachers too there. We continue to promote all these types of things when we're out on the road, and also with our teachers to retain them. One of the things that I think that is somewhat overlooked, but I was asked a lot about, was school safety and personal safety devices. And I think today we saw something else that was very unsettling once again. And I know I personally appreciate having school marshals around and and a PLD around my neck. So just want to, thank our school marshals for that. But that's something that actually is a recruitment tool that we use. Looking at high quality professional development, really focusing on giving our teachers opportunities to be part of our decision making, be on committees, be here, and us supporting them there too. Okay, Dr. Tinsley.
Okay, so looking at additional staff planning days or extended teacher planning days, what would that mean? It would be to allow teachers some flexibility in planning and preparation on their contract days. Teachers are on a 187-day contract. We believe this would support better work-life balance for our teachers. So how would we go about doing that? It would require a revision to the approved 23-24 calendar. It would not impact any of the current start or the end date of this school year or next school year, and not impact holidays. It would change 7 of the student instructional days to extended teacher planning days. Would require an extension of the school day, which we believe this would be a fair, and hearing from our teachers and our principals believe the time increase, our students could benefit from that. Looking at days that we have high absenteeism, of how to maybe put these days on those days, and reducing some of our early release days. Impact, we believe it will impact that challenge of teacher staff recruitment and retention, and would give us a little bit of an edge with neighboring districts that are currently offering higher salaries. The exchange of time might be a recruitment tool, we believe. So we had an opportunity for some recent feedback just on the additional staff planning days. There was a survey that we completed the last week. And this is just some overall results this tells you the number of completers from each campus. And for the parent survey results, with the question of agreeing with adding the extended teacher planning days to the school calendar, we had 82, almost 83% of our parents that agreed, and 17% said no. On our parent survey results, inquiring about childcare that they might need, we had approximately 195 parents that said they would be interested, and that is an area that we are further exploring and believe we can really enhance what we're currently offering already. So I hope I'll be coming to you soon with some more information about that. And the staff survey results, this is the breakdown of where the number of staff members that voted on each campus. And this is the breakdown of their position. So you can see the majority came from teachers. And out of this, we had 92% for agreeing that yes, and we had about 9% that said no. And we had a pretty high number of our teachers that might be interested in some childcare as well too. So some additional things we considered on some of the feedback. There was a comment section on the survey that we felt like we needed to consider when looking at the school calendar. There was some feedback. Would you add minutes to the beginning and the end of the day? And you'll see in just a minute what we're proposing. Consider November 1st as an extended teacher planning day. A couple of comments also wanting to do the day after the Super Bowl for one too. So, and additional minutes, how could they be utilized for tutorials, remediation, interventions, and enrichment? Because we have kids staying for tutoring already. Could we provide some affordable childcare options for families? And we certainly believe we can. And then would there be expectations for staff with implementation of the extended teacher planning day, some accountability measures that put forth? And yes, there will be. Also, we do feel like that this would, when we look at how could it impact student achievement, we believe it will really positively impact student achievement because our teachers will be more prepared. But it will also, some of the ways that we are going to be monitoring, we'll continue to monitor student progress, is we started our MTSS progress that we do with multi-tiered systems of support for our students. And then one of those instructional materials that I mentioned, the MAP growth system, would help us monitor students at a high frequency on progress. Also, we're going to be, with your approval of the instructional materials, we're going to be able to broaden high quality access to that, as well as with the technology devices that our teachers would have and students. We would also address that through professional development of how we're targeting student growth measures and interventions as appropriate. And again, the efficiency that technology could bring. We did meet twice with the Financial Sustainability Committee and Lovejoy 2030 Committee, and both of those committees are made up of parents and teachers. So the feedback that those groups shared, these are just some kind of big rocks here: staff appreciation, compensation, teacher autonomy and support, continued focus on culture, being creative with our teacher staff recruitment efforts, establishing some partnerships. We have some great partnerships already, but how can we broaden those partnerships? Ensuring that we have high quality resources for our teachers, allowing time for planning and preparation, and then teacher staff retention strategies. So looking at workloads, how we're protecting their time, feedback on incentives for longevity of service to the district. So these were recommendations from the committees as how to respond to teacher staff recruitment and retention efforts. So just a reminder what our school calendar requirements are. We build a school calendar based on the number of minutes, not instructional days. And so we're required to provide at least 75,600 minutes. And we do have some options with a little bit of waiver in there with some professional development time that we do build in. And then the teachers are on the 187-day contract. So the final recommendations is that we maintain the 8-period day at LHS and Willow and revise the 23-24 school calendar to reflect extended planning days. So I'm going to go into a couple of calendars here, and you have a copy of both these calendars. Or the revised calendar, you have two different copies of that. But if you look at the approved 23-24 approved student calendar, currently there are 171 instructional days. With the proposed calendar, that would reduce that to 164. Therefore, increasing the number of minutes that we would have to get into a day, moving from 435 to 455. At Puster, Hart, and Sloan, we would increase the daily minutes to 20 minutes per day. At Willow, it would increase by 15 minutes, and at high school, it would increase by 10 minutes. So that would mean converting 2 of the current, 3 of the professional development days that students are already off to planning days for staff. And what that means, we would not be scheduling meetings, we would not be scheduling professional development. Teachers would have the autonomy to determine how they use that time for planning and preparation. Use 2 of the bad weather makeup days with the understanding that we wouldn't have to use those days. And those days on the current calendar, as you remember, they're later in the school year. And then converting 7 instructional days to student holidays. The projected start and end time currently at Hart and Puster, our start time is 7:55 and we dismiss at 3:10. The additional planning teacher days that we're proposing starting 5 minutes earlier at 7:50, and the day ends at 3:25. Sloan Creek, do not recommend adding that on to that, going any earlier there, because they have a pretty early start anyway, but they would dismiss at 3:15 rather than 2:55. At Willow, adding 10 minutes on at the beginning of the day and then 5 minutes on to the end of the day. And then at high school, 5 minutes at the beginning and 5 minutes at the end. We have talked with principals about this, gotten their feedback. Mr. Parker has worked with transportation to ensure that we can support busing and traffic flow as well. So the two calendars that you have there, you have a, if I have, I'm gonna let you look at them. There's two different calendars. There's one that we're calling it a, it's the one that has the different dates listed in different colors. And really that was for the purpose for you to see how those days would be used. And then the second one is the actual version, like the format that we're using now, where it would just reflect student holidays. So the differences in those calendars would be that we would convert September 1st, September 29th, November 1st, December 15th, February 2nd, April 1st, and May 10th to extended teacher planning days, and those on the current calendar are instructional days. Then convert 3 of the professional development days to extended teacher planning days, which currently we have 4 during the school year, or excuse me, 6 during the school year. November 17th would become a extended teacher planning day. February 19th and 20th would be planning days. And then adjust the bad weather makeup days to March 8th and April 19th. And then convert 2 of the 3 early release days to extended teacher planning days. We believe that feedback from our principals too, that you can't get a lot accomplished on those early release days. Now at the high school, we use those for exam purposes. We would keep the last day of school though as an early release day. Some other considerations is that Leopard Friday is September the 8th, and traditionally that has been an early release day here in Lovejoy, but really felt like it's really the high school. We need students to clear out of the parking lot so that we can set up to kick that off at 5 or 5:30. And so did not feel like that it was necessary to have early release on the other campuses, that our students will have plenty of time to get with their families and enjoy the festivities. And then the Lovejoy High School early release days, final exam days would stay the same. There would be 4. So questions?
So if the bad weather makeup days have to be used, the teachers would lose those 2 potentially
Correct.
extended planning days, because those would become instructional days?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And then the 3 professional development days, when is that professional development being absorbed somewhere else? How does that work?
We believe, actually this year, the February days, we actually allowed that for teacher planning days because we were just hearing feedback from teachers, they needed that time. So we made some adjustments this school year. We also got some feedback from our teachers. We're going to keep the November, I believe it's the November the 17th or 16th. That would still be a professional development day. We believe that we do need that, but we feel like also we can embed some of this throughout the school year with our teachers as well. So, and then of course, we'll keep the January dates as professional development days as well.
I did read 33 pages of parent and staff comments, and I was amazed at how many people wanted the Super Bowl off the day after the Super Bowl. So I agree with that one. Same for November 1st. So I see that you've made that change.
We did make that change, yes.
I did see quite a few parent feedback around, is this going to be recess or is it going to be something else? Is that part of a decision that will be made by the campus principals at a later date? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Leopard Friday, bad weather day. It's my question.
Other questions? All right.
I don't know that I have questions. I did have a comment. Oh, Barrett. I just want, I read, thank you to the administration for making the comments available to us. I read all of them from the parents and the teachers this weekend as well. And it was getting percentages on a survey is one thing, especially sometimes the way the questions are asked can influence that, and I get that. So, but the comments are from the heart. You could tell people were telling us how they felt about these things, and I really enjoyed getting to read, and people were not on people were passionate about their opinions in both directions. I'll leave it at that. And I get it. We are faced with these hard decisions like we have been earlier tonight, and I have to admit I was skeptical when we first started talking about some of these changes about, okay, do we really need to do this? And is this something that is going to be in the best interest of the kids in the classroom? And I have to say, my skepticism, I've asked hard questions of the administration, I've had conversations with parents, I've had conversations with principals, and I feel like we have had a lot of time and opportunity for people to share their feedback. I appreciate that the district is going to be looking at ways to monitor and have accountability, making sure that if we are giving this time to teachers, that they're using it and using it to benefit the kids in the classroom. I feel like putting systems in place to monitor student outcomes is going to be critical. I'm planned to be watching for those reports as they come back to us about how this impacts student outcomes, not just in the classroom, but all the activities that they're doing. So I think this has been a thorough process. I don't know that it's perfect. I don't know that it ever can be, but I do recognize after all the conversations we've had with, especially the conversations with the principals and what they're seeing with, I know over the last couple of years, we've needed some attrition to become efficient, but I know we've lost some really good teachers in that process as well. And I don't want to lose any more, so.
I also would like to just comment about a little bit on the same topic. I appreciate the board asking the questions. And I think it's not appropriate to construe hard questions as not supporting someone. The whole objective here is to make sure we flesh out the best decisions, and having 8 different perspectives to do that is a valuable thing if it's used right. And if it's not, then it's not used well. And that comes through questions and correspondence and communication. And so want to encourage that to continue, obviously in a respectful and kind way, but to continue to ask the hard questions so that we can get to the bottom line. I agree, after reading and looking at all the opportunities we have to take care of our folks, that this is one step forward that we can take that ultimately, hopefully, will augment a successful culture that will create a happy place in the classroom more than it maybe was yesterday. Not perfect, but a step forward, and ultimately can positively impact our kids. That's what I'm wanting to see happen, because the happier the teacher, the happier the outcome, I believe. And I think that goes across the board for everybody serving the community through these roles, including you all and all of our staff. So I appreciate the process as well. I appreciate the number of times we've talked about it. And I also appreciate it bringing it to a head and moving forward. So thanks. All right, we'll move on to.
Can I make one comment real quick? Okay. I just want to say I've had both types of jobs. I've been a teacher, and then I've also been in the professional world. And one of the things I think is so great about this, sorry, Jason, it's a little contrary to what you just said. I think giving teachers the respect to have a day to be professionals says a lot to a teacher. You know, you've been one. They're professionals. They're going to do what's best because they love their job and they are professionals. So that communicates to me so loudly that we trust them and we believe in them and we want them to have balance. And I just wanted to say that.
I'll just add to some of the comments that have already been said. I do also appreciate so much the administration, the process that you went through. Oh my goodness, the decks and the charts and the meetings and all of that kind of stuff. I wanted to say thank you to the staff stakeholder committee who went through the process of doing that evaluation, because I know that that was an addition to your responsibilities. I thank you for all of the meetings and the FAQs and 2 community surveys, which I think is important. I also wanted to say thank you to the parents who took the time to attend those meetings and to submit their feedback. I don't think any plan is perfect and it has only pros and no cons, but I think this is a reasonable compromise between all of the different stakeholders. And my hope is that we can, as a community, not see this as one side, got their way or one side didn't get their way, because we are all on the same side. And that should be the success of the district and for its students. And so I still do hope that we are continuing to be focused on compensation and overall reduction of workload, which I know we will be.
I think we're obviously in unique times where it wasn't that long ago that we approved revisions to next year's calendar, and now we're doing it again. I really hope that the community understands that, at least I'll speak for myself, I don't take that lightly. We are moving away from a traditional calendar and have been for a little while. I'm very hopeful that this accomplishes what we need it to, and that we're not having conversations like this with calendar changes again soon. So that's my hope.
I would just add that I think, it's important, as y'all have done, is balancing the interests of everyone involved and the impact on all the stakeholders in making the decision. And, you can split hairs and say, take 5 minutes here or take this day here and all that. I don't know that you can always please everyone, but I think the message should be is that we are in unprecedented times, both for this profession and both for public education. And so we have a toolbox full of tools that we can do to try to improve teacher recruiting and retention and actually maybe perhaps improve student outcomes at the same time. And the days of, let's see how this goes for a little while and not do something that we can do now, I think those days are done. And I think we have to do anything and everything we can. I'm not saying we're going to do every single thing. We may disagree with it. It may not work for Lovejoy, but this is a problem statewide. We'll do the legislative update in a minute, and you'll hear more about that. But I'm just saying it's really hard, and the burdens being placed on our teachers, being placed on school districts, being placed on our students, make this very difficult. And at the end of the day, I know everybody in this room, whether you're work here and you teach or you're on the staff, whether you are a volunteer, whether you are a parent, or whether you're a student, I believe we're all here because we want to be. I believe we're all here because we chose to be. So in that sense, we can be more unified than other places who are dealing with different competing interests and different difficulties. But if we keep that in mind, we're here because we want Lovejoy to succeed. We want everyone in this room to succeed. Parents, kids, faculty, administration, even volunteers like myself. We all want to see us all succeed and have the best possible educational experience we can for our kids. And so that means making some balancing decisions and making some tough choices and moving forward together.
Well, and I want to piggyback off what you're sharing about the staff stakeholder committee. And they represent so many of our wonderful teachers, but always at the forefront with what was best for kids. So we had some difficult conversations, but kids were always at the front. And so, but I think that's what makes Lovejoy so special. So.
Here we move on. So we're going to go to item 16, consider and take possible action on the 23-24 school calendar revision recommendation. Mr. Parker.
Yeah, so mine's pretty short. With all of that said, the administration recommends the adoption of the revised 23-24 school calendar as presented.
Now you can make a motion. So moved, Julie McLaughlin. Second, Amy Smith. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Yeah, we're going to take a short break.
this or this.
Mr. Parker.
Amy, Kevin. All right, item 17 is the budget workshop.
Think I got the light on? Okay. Good evening, President Owens, board members, and Mrs. Cordell. Tonight, as part of the budget workshop number 5, we will share an update on our current school year projections, as well as updates to our budget estimates and considerations for the 23-24 and the following 2 school years. And then following the presentation, answer any questions that you may have. So for the current year, we're not seeing much of a change from what we shared last month in the February board meeting. We're still anticipating just below a $3 million surplus or net contribution to our fund balance. The big change that we're seeing month over month is tied to addressing some of the issues that we're seeing with our white fleet. So we'll be looking to purchase a Suburban and replacing one of our maintenance vans. And then we continue to see our interest income being higher than what we anticipated on a month-to-month basis. So we saw a slight increase in the February interest earnings. At the forefront of our planning and budget development for the 23-24 school year is our responding to our funding challenges with a focus on retaining Lovejoy's legacy of excellence, while also retaining and recruiting and supporting our teachers and staff. So some contextual factors, just to kind of overly simplify the explanation of the state funding formula. It's basically comprised of like 2 components, a rate times quantity. And our quantity is represented through our enrollment. And then the rate is the basic allotment, which is established through the legislative session. Currently, our funding challenges are due to the declining enrollment, which we did re-engage our demographer last week. So we'll be providing you an update on the consideration that we're making in our model due to that. And then obviously there's 3 different bills that have been filed that addresses during the legislative session that addresses the rate part of it, which is the basic allotment. And then with the increased property values, you would assume that with increased property values that we would see increase in revenue. Unfortunately, the tax collection revenue is basically a source of funds to fund that rate times quantity. So it's just one component that funds that, and the other component is the state foundation school program. So as we receive increased tax collections, if we exceed that rate times quantity, anything in excess of that just goes back to the state as recapture. So as we continue to develop our budget, we continue to focus on the board priorities of our fund balance, employee compensation, attendance, and enrollment. So when we look at our maintenance and operations budget assumptions, nothing much has changed here. We're still having the 7% annual property growth, 3% payroll salary increase in 23-24, and so forth, 5% inflationary increase on supplies and materials. The enrollment projections are the lone assumption here that has changed slightly. Some other budget considerations. The 2 things that have changed from this slide from last month that we're sharing is that as we increase the enrollment due to the re-engagement of the demographer, we also had to adjust our scaling of our staff. So as we increase the enrollment, we would need additional staff to make sure that we're maintaining ratio. So that has changed. And then the second one to the bottom, the compensation, as we look to continue to find ways to retain and recruit staff, we've increased our stipends for hard to fill positions, such as the special education teachers. But then also looked at our scale and looked to see how we can increase our scale a little bit to accommodate increases for new to Lovejoy ISD teachers. So that annual increase was roughly about $283,000. So as we look at our enrollment projections, so this was provided by our demographers. This is only looking at resident students only. So resident students are defined as residents and staff children. So very similar to what they did last year is they provided us with a low, moderate, and high. When looking at this and reviewing at the demographers, we felt the low was still a little bit aggressive. But at the same time, we did feel that ours was slightly conservative. So based off of our current enrollment and where we are right now, the current new constructions that were provided to us, and also the new homes that were for sale, and then our historic yield rates on those, we decided that we would model in somewhere in between our conservative number and their low number. So our low number for residents only were about 3829 compared to his 3939. And then we're anticipating about 221 Lovejoy scholars. We kept the scholars at the same approach, that conservative approach of just the numbers that we have right now and then matriculating the grade, and didn't change that approach. With the new resident count, we're showing the 3884, which is halfway between the 3829 and the 3939. And then maintaining again the 221 scholars totaling 4105, which is about a 55 additional student increase from the previous projection. So when we factor in all the things that we've considered with the increased enrollment and the additional staffing costs for the stipends and the scale increase, we're still looking at a deficit budget of roughly $649,000 and 112 days of fund balance for the end of 24, and still growing out to about a 3.9 deficit in the year 25-26. So as we look at additional considerations for the budget that's not modeled in, we've looked at extracurricular fees, and then also looking at an increase to our transportation fees. So what we've done here is we're showing for the next 3 years, if we incorporate $100, $250, and $500 fee per event. So per student that's attending, that participates in athletics and that participates in an extracurricular fine art. And then when we look at the transportation fee, we're looking at this as just a flat fee, regardless of if you do AM only or PM only. Our current fee for both right now is $350, and this here models that we would have a flat fee of $350 plus an additional $50, $100, and $150. So given our current deficit of the roughly $649,000, if we look at, for instance, applying a $250 for athletics and fine arts and a $50 increase in transportation, that would get us well above a balanced budget and into a surplus budget, given no increase to the basic allotment. So at the last minute, right before the deadline was for filing bills, House Bill 11 was incorporated, which established a new low as far as the basic allotment increase. So it recommends a $50 increase to the basic allotment. And this just shows what a $50 increase would do to our budget. Our current 3% increase would accommodate the proposed increase of the 30% to 50% of increased funding that would be applied to school-based staff, but it still would be about a $200,000 benefit annually to our overall budget. So quick legislative updates. Most of this you've seen already as far as the increase of the basic allotment ranging from $6,700 to $7,000. The new ones that we've incorporated here is the House Bill 11, which is what we just talked about, was the $50 per ADA increase of the basic allotment. And then we've also included Senate Bill 8 and Senate Bill 418. And then basically with Senate Bill 8 and Senate Bill 418 and the inter-district transfer criteria is involved in this, and as well as prohibiting us from charging out of district tuition, this would have a potential impact to Lovejoy of about $2.4 million. So here's the sensitivity that we saw last month. This incorporates the $50, but the change to this now, if they implement that change for the salary increase from 30% to 50%, we would have an additional compensation increase due to that change from 30 to 50%. So this now incorporates moving that from 30 to 50%. So as far as planning for next steps, we have two more regular board meetings in April, one in April, one in May for the budget workshops 6 and 7. We'll continue to monitor legislative updates and provide anything that we feel is pertinent to include in the model. We also welcome any feedback that the board would like to provide that you would like for us to consider and incorporate into our model for the next two workshops. So at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
More of a statement, but if 2 of these bills passes, or possibly 4 of these, I mean, that I'm not sure even going to be significant changes that have to be made. Significant.
Correct.
Between 418, 8, and the other 2, I believe. So appreciate the detail of the impact there on those.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the detail as well. I was just curious, what's our largest thing that we need to do between now and budget approval? I know we need to watch for the legislative session. It sounds like fees are there. Is there another kind of thing, demography, sounds like we're still working on. Is there anything else that we should be anticipating going forward?
The compensation, we're going to approve the compensation.
We're working, we're somewhat waiting on the calendar approval and stuff because we'll need to look at that, but that would be something else, our compensation plan. So that would be the next step for me to work on.
Those would be the main ticket items.
When you were making your adjustments on the enrollment numbers, did you only adjust next year's or the out years also to go in between the demographers and what you had as well?
The latter, we adjusted for the out years as well.
I'm only one of 7, but my feedback would be that I would be interested in understanding the steps it would take to close the deficit budget for 2024 and what those decisions would need to be made to get to a flat.
So I think a part of that, Julie, I think you recognize is the fee analysis, obviously, but there's changes that could be done otherwise that would probably impact programming to get there. Other questions for Thomas?
I'll just add one thing on the flat budget. We have to approve this, and if we're in a special session, we may not know what bills get, so we can always amend, right?
Absolutely.
In hopes to
yes.
get there, but that's part of the tricky part, and I think we were trying to kind of lay low and not make a ton of changes till we saw what was gonna happen or not happen. Am I correct in saying that?
That is correct. You can see the number of bills that could have potential financial impact and the level of that impact. There's quite a swing on that. And unfortunately, that's not something we will know until much later on. And the session, of course, ends in May, but then there's also the concern of things going into a special session as well.
Almost seems like a guarantee at this point.
I can see that point. I mean, I can understand where maybe that doesn't make sense going into the first budget. But if we're not successful with some of these things or some of those negatives, then I would recommend that we consider agenda items then in the summer to close that deficit budget, because I'm looking at that 3 years out and I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think to your point, we may have to pass a budget and then we may have to amend based on what we know versus what we think we know, and maybe not react too quickly, but shore it up as we get more details and understand the situation. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Item 18 is a presentation on the partnership with My Community Credit Union.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to have Carrie Sharp come up the other microphone here. We have find it here. Which one is it, Rodrigo? Is it the click one? Is it on there? It's not on here. Let me just log in. Okay. Okay, while I'm locating this, I'm going to introduce Carrie Sharp. She's our K-12 Social Studies Coordinator and also supports student programming. And she has been very instrumental in working through this. Hopefully, we're going to establish a partnership, but wanted to let you know what we have been working on. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get there. It's a long agenda.
I think you went past it. I'm sorry.
Okay, here we are. Got it. Okay.
Awesome.
So we have been working with my community credit union since middle of the fall, maybe as early as October, looking at creating a partnership for our students here, not just at the high school, but also K-12 of some opportunities. And just to kind of bring forward from our Lovejoy 2030 of some of our teaching and learning goals is that we would be looking for opportunities to enhance that learning experiences for our students, prepare them as future ready, and then maintain that level of excellence. So what we have done is that we've looked at one of our CTE courses on our financial literacy and accounting, as well as our social studies. And we were approached by my community credit union to, they were proposing building a financial center here at our Lovejoy High School. And so what that would mean is that we would locate a centralized space there at the high school. One of the area that we are looking at right now is if you're upstairs at the library, there's a space right across that has it's a smaller room, but it has a big storage area that we feel like we convert it to an actual financial center. And it would be a level 4 course for our students with a practicum experience. We would not start it until the 24-25 school year to give us a year for planning, design, and some incentives for building some incentives for our students beyond the high school to be involved in this. It would be also developing some high quality instructional materials to support financial literacy in our programs K-12. And then some partnerships where we could enhance the college career, our CCMR work with our students. So we're just really in kind of the beginning stages. Carrie, you want to highlight any of that I've just kind of lifted up with that?
So what I love about this possible partnership with my community credit union is we're going to be a flagship for them. This is their first opportunity to have this type of branch in a school. And so not only will it impact financial literacy for our K-12 students overall, it's going to be essential. It's going to be an on-site opportunity for our kids to have a practicum experience. And so with the build looking at the 24-25 school year, we will have this whole year to really market and attract our students to this practicum opportunity and really make sure that we are showing off, Lovejoy as a community. So, and my community credit union, if you didn't know, was just named the Allen Fairview Chamber Business of the Year. So this is a really amazing partnership that we have the potential to be in partner with. So.
Okay, so as Carrie mentioned, they are very interested in establishing a corporate sponsorship to enhance support for our students as well as our teachers. Carrie's been working with the representative on having a contest where our students would actually be able to compete to design a debit card that would be unique to Lovejoy. Offering some reality fairs for our students, scholarship opportunities, teacher recognition programming, and again, the financial education literacy for our students. So what we're currently doing, we're in some negotiation with proposals for our MOU, and we hope to be bringing an MOU to you soon as we finalize that for your approval. This just gives you some insight of what it could look like here, the storefront or the financial center, where our students would actually be working there, and offer some vocational steps for our children as well too. So we're excited about it. So any questions?
Yeah, super excited about it. I think it's a great move for us. I'm curious, what are they looking to accomplish on their side to make this a beneficial relationship for them?
I think absolutely, you know, as far as some marketing for them as well, but also a partnership as far as enhancing this for our students. Allen High School actually has a center at their high school right now with another credit union, and have feedback that we've gotten, and Carrie has gone over and visited that site, and it's been highly beneficial for students. But there are some things that we are trying to build into the MOU that could be some financial benefits for us as a district as well too, to support the program.
For them, though, they're doing it for growth of reputation and opportunity to invest in the community, and hopefully
Absolutely.
rapport with our
And have-
resident base and potentially other schools. Is that
Yes.
is that what they're looking to get on their side of the equation?
I believe that's what I gathered from it, and but Carrie and Katie, you could comment any further on that, but.
That is accurate. They have a commitment to being an active part of the community, and they obviously benefit when children grow up and become financially literate, and then use those financial literacy skills as adults. And so certainly that partnership increases visibility for them as well within our community at all levels. And then I think this had to be the right partnership with the right organization. And we spent a lot of time with them determining where their heart was, where their intent was. And truly they want an opportunity to give back on a deeper and more meaningful level. If there hadn't been that level of philosophical alignment, it wouldn't be a good partnership, regardless of how financially beneficial or opportunity beneficial it would be for our students. And I will share, as we narrow in on finalizing this MOU, we obviously will be coming to you with additional detail, additional presentation here in the future, the opportunity to review that MOU, and then to consider approval at the appropriate point in time.
And again, I think that one of our goals has been to expand some opportunities for our students with some practicum experiences, and as well as some vocational is what we're trying to build as well too. So.
I love it. Other questions?
Thank you. Appreciate the
Thank you.
All right, item 19 is our board legislative subcommittee update.
Okay, so this is an update for March. March 10th was the filing deadline for bills. There were 1,307 public education bills filed. We had a legislative subcommittee with Raise Your Hand Texas to gauge current legislative trends impacting schools, and I'll just kind of be honest, the vouchers thing has kind of sidetracked everything else and is dominating all the air down there right now. Not everything, but almost everything. Coming up, we're going to continue to monitor the bills. I'll admit to being the first person to have not read all 1,307 of them. And then we are looking for key opportunities at key times to get constituents, get Lovejoy parents involved, teachers as well. One of our goals is to coordinate a visit down there, probably do some morning meetings and then do some afternoon, they call it barnstorming, or going office to office, trying to catch people, trying to get through their gatekeepers in order to discuss Lovejoy legislative priorities. I think some of us as a board are planning to go down in April to kind of test some of those opportunities. Someone else want to do the calendar?
Very exciting. This is the same calendar that we presented before. We just
Okay.
keep marching down the page, I think, a little bit.
Well, we'll just jump over that one then, since it's the same calendar. Again, the only change is that the filing deadline for new bills is passed. There's been some discussion about it last month and tonight, but Senate Bill 418, filed by Angela Paxton, relates to regulations for out-of-district transfer students. Not only does it prohibit the charging of tuition, which, Lovejoy enjoys and uses in order to narrow the existing gap between state funding and the actual cost of education, the bill mandates an acceptance criteria and certain priorities and uses a lottery system for the availability of seats not utilized by resident students. And so we will effectively lose control over the priority. We currently use a first come, first served system. So that would be dramatically impacted by going through this priority list and then having a traditional lottery. Financial concern, 418 limits our ability to offer enrollment to children of our teachers and staff. They are pretty far down the list of the priorities for acceptance. And it would result in a potential reduction of revenue, approximately $2.4 million that Lovejoy uses to support other district programs. Unfortunately, and again, we don't know where 418 is going to end up. We don't know if it's going to be amended. Right now, it has no, other than an effective date, it has no grandfathering opportunities. It has no language about, delaying the effect of this bill. And it could result potentially in termination of the Scholars Program. Senate Bill 8 is the one everyone's talking about. It is a omnibus parental rights bill. It's 53 pages long, contains a lot of different things, touches a lot of different issues. The headline in the newspaper is going to be that creates an educational savings account, which takes public funds and provides them to parents for use in private schools. Now, there's a limited eligibility to this program, and you have to be currently enrolled in a public school or attended a public school 90% of the year prior. So someone who's been in private school for 10 years isn't eligible for this program. So clearly this is meant to take children from public school into private school when we're already in several years of declining enrollments statewide. There's a short-term hold harmless for districts under 22,000 students in enrollment. By short-term, I mean if a student enters the Educational Savings Account program and leaves the school district, the resident school district will get to $10,000 for the first 2 years the child participates in the program. And after that, that's done. Okay.
I can just add a few things to that. So I went to a training this weekend that talked a lot about Senate Bill 8, and that it was estimated to cost the state of Texas $1 billion within 4 years. Just think about what $1 billion through the Texas public school system, what that could actually do for our kids. Another thing that I think is really interesting about this is that it funds children who transfer into private schools at $8,000 per child. We only receive $6,160 per child. So I'll take the 8,000 too. And one thing that I also was interesting to hear the folks that are down on the Hill kind of report back is that they believe that this will pass the Senate. And so really the fight is in the House. And so my understanding is their first budget night is April 6th. And that's when the representatives might take their first sort of straw vote on where they stand related to vouchers. And so that will be something that we'll also be looking for. So our next few slides, I'm not going to read the entire slide to us, but since we have passed that bill filing deadline, we wanted to come back and discuss how did the cards all shake out with regard to which bills were filed and how that lines up with our legislative priorities. I'll just echo what Jeff said. We did not read 1,300 bills. And so we did rely on some summaries that some other organizations are putting out. And this would be by no means an exhaustive list. So first, of course, we want to increase the basic allotment. I did list all of the bills here just to kind of show you the emphasis on the number of bills. It does show a level of prioritization by our congressmen and women to increase the basic allotment. We do have the first one listed there does have a companion bill in both the Senate and the House, and that goes to 7,075. And so just to give you a little financial metric, we're currently at 6,160. If you apply the inflationary metric, it adds almost $1,000 of purchasing power that you would need to get the same purchasing power. Excuse me. So that 7,075 just keeps pace with inflation. It doesn't actually increase funding to public schools. And then just as my soapbox, it's a reminder that Texas does fund its public schools at number 42 out of 50 states. And so we'll certainly be hoping for the increase in the basic allotment. And if you would like to call and write your senator or congressman, now would be the time. There are some bills that are in the House related to funding on enrollment versus attendance. It seems to be mixed commentary on if we think those are going to go forward. Moving to priority 2.
I would just add that Texas is one of only 9 states that funds public schools based on attendance versus enrollment.
And the bills that have been filed to address attendance versus enrollment tend to address special populations only, not necessarily the full population of public school children. So number 2, there wasn't any bills directly on point addressing recapture in total, but there were certainly some bills that would increase the basic allotment. We would be able to keep more tax dollars local. And then, if there is a higher homeowners exemption amount, which will certainly help all of our taxpayers reduce their overall tax burden, it also helps with how much recapture that we have to send back. There are some provisions in the general appropriations bill, which was both House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1, that increase the yield on golden pennies, which we like. Convert additional pennies to golden pennies. I like this one. There's one right on point. They want to move our golden pennies from 8 to 10. That'll certainly help us keep more tax dollars local. Throughout the slides, it did sort of call out where there were no bills filed specifically to address a Lovejoy ISD legislative priority. I just think that's also meaningful for us to know kind of which of our priorities are probably not going to be moving forward. Next slide. Provide resources to recruit and retain teachers. So on this one, there's within the bills that increase basic allotment, some of them do include specifications on how we use the funds. And that would be a certain percentage used for teacher raises. We would do that anyway, but that's something that we would have to take into account. The big one here is House Bill 11, which is kind of the biggest investment into salary schedules. I think the challenge here is it only applies to districts that use the minimum salary schedule, which is not us. That's going to be your heavy rural districts that have really small populations. There is some good stuff around retirees that proposes a 13th check and also COLA adjustments, which is really good. I'll go ahead and go to number 4. Increase funds for safety. And so HB 3 is the big one here. It increases the school safety allotment to $10 per student. To give you some background, we're at $9.72 today. So going up to $10 is kind of a small increase, but we also get $15,000 per campus, which is good. It requires armed security, which of course we have. And no direct bills on school bond language, this one. So questions for me?
Number 5, it seems like most of the bills take away local control more than give it.
They do. There wasn't a direct bill that says keep local control, so it was hard for me to summarize that one. They do. Yeah. So on this one, of course, we've covered the first one on pre-K. We've shown that in our legislative update, the last 2 updates. Another one to bring to you is Senate Bill 9, which calls for increases in teacher salaries, which is good. But it doesn't really address how much, and it doesn't provide any money to do it. So that would be kind of a no, kind of like a no good deal.
So the bill literally has a blank in
It
it
does.
for the amount of teacher increases. The only one thing I did like in the bill is it provides double the teacher incentive for districts under 22,000 students like us. So if, for instance, if it results in a $2,000 teacher pay increase for the large district, smaller school districts would get 4. But I've read both the fiscal implications white paper that accompanies the bill. There's no amounts and there's no appropriation included in this bill. Would have to be, appropriated in a separate bill.
There's another one I was looking at that is House Bill 2162. It didn't get on the slide, but it's authored by the same rep that brought us House Bill 4545. And so it also requires a certain level of accelerated instruction if the child does not meet certain milestones. Again, unfunded mandate. There's also another one I thought was interesting that was a bill that would prevent school districts from hosting a polling location, potentially reducing the amount of voter turnout we have going on. And just another plug, these are your representatives. I'm sure they would love to hear from you. And we have provided a great summary for certain bills that you might want to be for or against. And I know that I personally have only written to my representative once last year, and she wrote me back a letter disagreeing with me, so then I didn't do it again. But we have 12,000 registered voters in Lovejoy ISD. Imagine what we can do if we contact them and let them know how we feel about the impact to educational savings accounts on public education, but also specifically increasing the basic allotment and what that would do for the students of this district.
So any updates on the traction Senate Bill 418 has gotten?
No, I don't think so, because there's identical language in Senate Bill 8. And the difference is it did move teachers' children up from priority number 7 on the acceptance list to number 1. So
it's interesting what's not said in these bills about capacity versus the hierarchy of acceptance and seats for taxpayers.
We get updates sometimes every couple of days on which bills are being looked at in committee. It hasn't been talked about in committee yet.
Yeah, 8 and 9 have been discussed in Senate Ed committee last week.
I wouldn't limit, if people in the community are reaching out to the legislators, I wouldn't limit it just to our representatives here. I mean, I think it's important to start there, but we had published previously other members of the education committees, both in the House and the Senate. You'll find that some of the other members in other geographic locations might be even more receptive to some of the things we're talking about. And so the more we can continue to talk to the ones, especially if we find advocates, and we have found some, and even in our one previous meeting, I think it's worth it to talk to as many of them as we can.
Well, and I think that, the legislature, the proponents of Senate Bill 8 are really concerned about rural, small school Republican communities. Hence the 2-year, $10,000 per student payoff for the first 2 years.
But I'd rather them give that money into public schools and invest where we have 90+% of Texas school children that attend public schools.
They have a constitutional mandate to do so.
They have a constitutional amendment, yes.
What other questions?
One other thing, I know it was on one of the slides, but there is a website now also that has a lot of the update information and lists a lot of the people that we're talking about reaching out to. So there is a resource linked. Which page is it linked to, Katie, on the board, off the board page? So if you're looking for some of this information or steering other people that you have conversations with in the community, let them know there's a lot of this information available on the website.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to cabinet reports.
Just to finish up the evening, mine will be short and sweet. As we have updated you each time on our monthly financials, we are looking at the general fund expenditures, and historically to date, we were at 64%. But now through February, our actual results are at 62%, so that's good. So I feel pretty confident in the number that Thomas shared with you, the 2.9 million adding back to fund balance. Hopefully we'll stay on trend. The other two big pieces of revenue that's come in the month of February, $5.4 million in tax collections, and also some extra earnings. I think we'll probably see another budget amendment, probably just wait till the end of the year, because our tax pool interest at the higher rates continues to exceed our budget. On the debt service side, about 2.8 million has come in. So we're just monitoring those two on tax collections in case in any event that we have to do a budget amendment, either up or down at the end of the year. And then, of course, at the end of February, we still have 266 days on hand. And then I just wanted to follow up again a little bit on the tax collections. We do have an anomaly this year, and it was called the ice storms. And so it's really hard to go back and look and see if we can tell what Collin County Tax Collecting Office did for the 3 days they were closed, and how they accepted payments coming in that they didn't physically receive until they reopened their offices, that they might have received if they had been open, as far as charging, penalty and interest, and also getting the money in the bank. But good news is, after February has closed, we are on track and actually exceed last year's collective collection percentage. Of course, we knew we were going to exceed the dollar amount because of our increased sizable 15% tax base increase last year. The original levy was for both M&O and INS was 50 million. We increased that over the year with some supplemental adjustments of about 1.3 million. So of the total revised tax levy that we're hoping to collect this year, the 51.3 million, we still have a remaining levy of 2.2 million, even after the 8.2 million that came in February. So we'll keep you apprised of how we're doing on our delinquent collections. And then, of course, come July 1, all of those accounts get turned over to your delinquent tax attorney, Lineberger, and then hopefully they can help us get more of that money in our coffers sooner.
So I guess the obvious question I have is recapture will be going up by some amount based on the collections, obviously. Is that a fair statement?
Only if it exceeds what we already have in our budgeted model. So we've already adjusted recapture based on the current budget for this year. And so we'll just have to kind of wait and see till the end of the year. And also, attendance, we're still projecting that 95.5. We're still modeling a little bit better than that. And so there's just a lot of things that can impact that when we do our final budget amendments and try to figure out what our final summary of finance will look like, which includes our recapture payment.
Okay, mine, couple things I'm going to be reporting for special education and also for curriculum and instruction. We're about to launch and publicize our summer enrichment opportunities for our this summer, and there's some new improved systems we're putting in place that we're going to have it all housed in one location. So you would have your enrichment camps for the students pre-K through 8th grade. Also, our athletic camps and our fine arts camps will all be in one location, and the same payment method will be used through RevTrack. So, so the dates that we're going to be hosting our summer enrichment opportunities, these are, and we tried to coordinate this with where it would not interfere with summer curriculum writing, because what we found is that some of our teachers work the camps, and so that's revenue coming in for them. And then the same with curriculum writing. So we're trying to, we did have a week there that we are protecting that. So some new opportunities we're providing. We've had the National Parks camp that Ms. Chadwick has facilitated. I think she's the one who came and shared with the critters last time, or when we had Sloan come and had a fun time with that. We are also going to be launching a Lego STEM camp this summer. We have purchased the materials for that already, and we think that's going to be a high interest camp. Another one is we're going to be doing a drone camp for our younger students, and actually using the gym here in this facility for our students to actually learn how to build and drive drones. So some fun things coming ahead for that. Registration is going to begin April the 11th, and we'll be sharing that information and connect with Katie, and also on the website and social media. So that's coming soon. Any questions about summer enrichment opportunities?
Will there also be kind of the full day camps that people can use for daycare as well, as is that been changed with this?
Right now, we had made the decision not to, because our enrollment was so low in that last summer that we were actually losing money as a result of it. So, but as I mentioned, we are looking at a partnership with a company that would help enhance our after-school care, also cover childcare for the days that would be teacher planning days, and then some summer opportunities that are building in some enrichment opportunities for our students too that would be affordable. So it could, depending on what we can work out, if we do move forward with this company. And that's been our challenge, particularly with our childcare after school, is that we've had a wait list of a little over 40 students all throughout the year because we couldn't staff it, and we don't have the capacity to offer some of the enrichment opportunities that possibly this company could do. And they would still employ our current employees. It's just that we would not have that, and it would still be revenue generating, is what our preliminary findings have been. So just like what we're already doing right now. So more to come, hopefully, at our next board meeting on that. So let me go into the special education update. So we just have quite a few celebrations this month. We had a group go to Anna for basketball Special Olympics and had some fun times there. And we also had our PALS kids with us to assist with that. We have April 21st track and field in Van Alstyne event, and then again on May the 10th a track and field in Anna ISD. So we're pleased that we can provide these opportunities for our students. Just an update, as you're aware, we were awarded an autism grant that actually included some supports for students, but also training for our teachers. And we've gotten some really good feedback with these areas, and it's addressed behavioral strategies, online. It's been designed through looking how we're setting up the classroom environment for our students so that they can be successful. And then these are just some statements from a couple of our teachers who participated in the training with the feedback that we received. And these are just some things some visuals of what you can see when I talk about some strategies we've set up in the classroom. So some photos of that, to where you can see stations that have set up, visual schedules for our students, some of the work break activities that we've organized as well. And then we hosted recently a parent night for dyslexia, and this was actually facilitated by our dyslexia teachers. We felt like we had a great turnout with this, some interest in it. So this was hosted on March the 15th. And we've also included some resources for our parents in our newsletters, through our special education newsletters, and also on our website. And this is an example of the Take Flight. These are some Take Flight groups that we have. And this was actually some of the decodable text that we're using with our students was actually funded by the foundation. And so you see some kiddos in action and some of our teachers with them as well too. This is just an overview of what you see happening on campuses, with some collaboration going on between our general education teachers and our special education teachers as they're planning how they're, some of our auxiliary staff, our aides that are going into classrooms to help support. There's a picture there. We have music therapy for some of our students, which is a fun time for our kiddos, and it also helps build those relationships. So just wanted to lift up some of the great things that are happening in special education. So what we have coming up tomorrow, actually, we have we're doing a parent training here at the in this facility on how parents can help in the area of assertiveness and communication with their students. Also, some transition information coming April the 13th. And then we've been doing some work with our parent advisory committee group. And we're also going to be coming forward with some recommendations. We're looking at the areas of how we're utilizing, as I mentioned, our assessment staff and support that they're providing on campuses. We're working with a consultant right now who'll be coming forward with some recommendations on how we're maximizing that staff, and also looking at some vocational pathways for our students as well too, some updates on that.
Okay, I am short and sweet tonight. So really, we are recruiting. We had talked about branding. It's one of our goals in our strategic plan. So we've been doing that and reaching out to those in the area, and also different colleges, career fairs. Katie, actually, we did a little postcard. She wrote a note there that was really sincere. I have to tell you, the picture of her, that second picture of her, got a lot of attention when they asked her, like, who's that teacher? I'm like, that's our superintendent sitting there.
It wasn't me. I'm holding a baby chick.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
That's
but it was
the draw.
Right. Anyway, but it was, but it worked. Whatever, I mean, the branding part worked. So I want to thank Kim Steiner. Her and I kind of worked on this together, but she's truly the creative one in the group. It is not me. But you'll see more of this. We've done some tabletop banners, some tall banners, and we're excited to get out there and promote Lovejoy and all the things, the wonderful things that we do here. So we also just wanted to remind you, we had to reschedule the sneak peek to April 25th. So Holly and Wendy back there gave me a new date. We are asking right now, it is kindergarten roundup. So please, please, please register your kindergartner and any other child so we can get them counted in our enrollment numbers, and we can hire teachers for them and make sure that we're appropriately staffed.
Can you speak to any of the recruiting efforts you've been doing at some of the various college campuses?
Yes, I was actually Monday night we had board meeting. I got up at 4:30 on Tuesday and drove to OSU in Stillwater and recruited there. Very successful, lots of people. One thing is our branding looks really good, I have to say, but also a lot of people came, it did. So I talked with a lot of teachers, a lot of elementary education teachers. We were looking for special ed. There wasn't one there actually, but had a lot of interest. Interesting enough, I had a teacher several come and talk to me that one came up in particular, and she was from Liberty High School in Frisco, and she said, I played volleyball for Liberty High School, and I played against Lovejoy, and they beat us in the finals, and I want to work there, and I want to learn what you're doing and how you coach volleyball. Her name's Catherine. She's been, we've been communicating there. So anyway, yes, she wants to know all about volleyball. So I've already told Coach Ross about her. So. And then I left that afternoon and did some interviews there and went to OU I'm an Aggie, but I went to OU. So anyway, but at OU, I also talked with 2 special education teachers, several elementary education teachers, very excited. Our principals are communicating with them on Saturday. Dr. Zambezi and I met with hopefully a future Lovejoy teacher, and spent some time with her showing the facilities. It was really nice. We had coaches at the high school. Baseball was about to happen with the Majestics performing. Very impressive to be able to take someone through the school and see how active it is. And everyone's so friendly and talking about Lovejoy. And then Travis and I also had a burger at Kelly Farms with the applicant, and sat outside and just got to know her a little bit. So we feel pretty good about that. On Monday, I'll be in Aggie Land at A&M, recruiting there too. One reason I want to point out, one reason we do recruit in Oklahoma and maybe Alabama, Ole Miss, all these, is because we actually pay more than they do in those states. And so we do get, we have some positive, we get candidates from there, because at least in Texas, we pay more than those states are surrounding us. So that's why we're there. Get some high quality individuals here. Thank you.
That's all right. I need all the help I can get. Uh-oh. Sorry. Right. Just a couple of updates from student services. We do have a fine arts group that is in their competition season right now. Our one-act play competed in district in Denison. Last week they competed in by-district in Denison, and they advanced to the area competition, which is this Wednesday, March 29th at Tyler Junior College. So their competition season is kind of like any athletic competition season. They do district, they do by-district, they do area, regionals, and then eventually state. And so we, of course, are cheering them on to move on each and every week. So we want to congratulate the theater students, the one-act play students, and of course, Ms. Brewster as well. So we'll give you an update on the Thursday board notes on how they finish up on Wednesday at Tyler Junior College. Back in the fall, we had mentioned that we were going to apply for a couple of security grants, and very pleased to announce that we've been awarded both of those grants. The silent panic alert technology, which was the smaller one, but anything is good, was $9,523. It has to be used specifically for silent panic alarm technology, kind of like we already have. But it can also go towards infrastructure and enhancing that infrastructure that we may need to have better communication within our district. And then we also received or were awarded the school safety standards grant, which was the big one, $265,000, $466. So that one, there is a minimum standards that we have to meet. So there's some primary costs that we have to meet, and we've met a bunch of those. But Casey, myself, Ms. Cordell have been working together to make sure that we meet every one of those. And then once we do that, we can go to some secondary costs that we can apply whatever's remaining to. So we'll have an update for you we'll have an update for you regarding those grants shortly. And finally, I hope everybody has paid attention. We've put this out in the community. Wednesday evening at the high school, we're going to have a presentation called Fentanyl Factor. It's no secret how much this has become a part of the news every evening. It's become a part of our surrounding communities. It's impacted students at surrounding school districts. And we really wanted to get information out to our parent community about how they need to talk to it's really not even teenagers. I have a son who's in 6th grade, and we talk about this. Just simply don't take something that you don't know what it is from people. Just because it may look like candy, it doesn't mean it's candy. And unfortunately, we have to take that approach now to keep our kids safe. But on Wednesday afternoon at the high school, right now it's planned for the lecture hall. The crowd is probably going to push us into the auditorium because it's growing. But we'll have a panel discussion. First of all, there'll be about a 16-minute video addressing fentanyl and the different facts about fentanyl. And then there will be a panel discussion with local professionals who will just give us a lot of question. It's be a question and answer opportunity that we get to find as much information out as we can, because the worst thing I think that we can do, the worst approach that we can have, is it won't happen in Lovejoy, because as soon as we say that, we really make ourselves even more vulnerable than we already are. So I hope everybody can get out and see what information we can, will be provided to us. And we're always looking at other ways and other organizations that can provide us more information on this unfortunate drug that's slowly making its way around North Texas. Any questions on that?
Is the only opportunity on that going to be in person, or is there going to be?
Yes. It doesn't mean, it is not really a community event, it's an area event. So we have it. So that's not to say that it won't be offered at other places and other locations in the next, coming months.
All right, Ms. Cordell.
So I'll piggyback off of Mr. Parker in that regard. And if parents want some additional resources on the fentanyl and they're not able to attend, if they'll go back to our March 17th Connect with Katie, there are a number of resources in there that are very helpful. And I have 10-year-olds. And there were some resources in there that I actually printed out some pictures and shared with them and had an age-appropriate conversation, because it is that concerning. And so the more our community and our parents can be aware and have conversations with your children, it's critically important. I also want to share that people don't feel numbers, whether we share those numbers in a budget presentation, through a VATRE, whether we share those numbers now in a budget workshop, whether this evening, the numbers that we share as part of a legislative update, nobody feels those. That's just information. What we feel is when it has an impact on programs our kids love and are a part of and thrive in. We feel it when it impacts the educators that work with our children, and we feel that as well. We are facing some very difficult decisions. We faced some tonight. We'll face some in the future. And it is very hard to do that when you know it is going to have an impact on children. It's going to have an impact on educators. But what I can say is some of these challenges, we are ready and willing to stare them in the eye and be creative and tenacious in our problem solving and our decision making, so that we can keep this district moving forward and continue to provide excellent opportunities for our students. Everybody that was in this room this evening was here because they care about kids and because they care about Lovejoy ISD. And we know that, and we appreciate that deeply. I also would encourage everyone to dial in on those budget numbers and on those legislative bills that are starting to go through. It's important, it matters, and I don't want us to continue to be in the position where we have to make difficult decisions, but that's what we have to do to keep the district moving forward. So I just want everybody to know we take that with great weight, understanding the full impact, and it's essential for us to be able to move forward. I also thank our teachers and our administrators. The educators that continue as part of this profession are tenacious, and they care deeply about kids, because otherwise they would have opted out a long time before now. They wouldn't be here doing the work they're doing if they didn't. And so just want to emphasize my gratitude for them and how proud I am to work alongside them on behalf of each and every student in Lovejoy ISD.